Just let you guys know I'm going live right now, just to get the stream going.
Well, that story's good then.
Oh yeah, you're good. It's not quite live yet. I'm just
okay. But yeah,
waiting for it to go live.
That's what we do right now. So I'd rather be there this weekend doing the games, but I think I am assuming Fred's doing them. So
what's going on in Florida? A little golf or just getting away?
I just got there. I just got here the other day. I will golf eventually. Not yet, but I'll get out there for sure. Yeah, it's just I don't need to be in Chicago right now, so why be there when my dad bought a place down here about 15 years ago, so it's a nice little place to get away. I'm not going to complain ever.
So rough, isn't it?
hey, it's not mine, at least not yet, but it's, he's generous and lets us use it. So I'm not going to complain.
Just be safe down there.
Oh, that's the best part. Like, that's the best part of golfing is you go play by yourself, and it's the best kind of place to, still be able to do something, but be safe. So there are some crazies down here, that's for sure.
My kids and I got a lot of golf in this summer with the pandemic and everything, because it's the one thing we could really do outside and not worry too much.
Right. Exactly. That's well, and I was here in March last year. As soon as that game, I think I told you guys, as soon as that game got canceled in the season, I came down here to survive the early months, and golf stayed open in Florida, which, they deemed it.
Well, everything stayed open in Florida.
Well, but in April, in March and April, everything was shut down. Even the beach, I remember it was pretty bad. But the golf, they called it essential business. I don't know how, but it was safer there than going to a grocery store. I mean,
I bet
by a wide margin. You're outside. I was played by myself. There weren't that many people out there. You'd see 6 people all day, in your own cart. I didn't play with anyone, so it was I mean, you go to a grocery store and you're touching things that 20 other people have just touched.
Yeah, my least favorite thing is to go to Costco on the weekend. I just
I don't even go to Costco except for I only go for the hot dog. I love those hot dogs. I try not to go that often, but you can't beat them. It's $1.75 for a hot dog and a drink. I mean,
right?
Come on. Doesn't get any better than that.
Good old-fashioned gut bomb.
Oh, for sure. All right.
Okay, I'm almost ready here. All this junk I have to do, the tweeting. And
20 goals, breaking records, nothing to talk about.
Unbelievable.
So Arizona State was missing some guys. Not a ton, but the second goalie was out, right? Brady?
Well, the third goalie came in at one time. So
they had to call up the club goalie so that they could have 3. And I think they were missing 6 other guys from their usual lineup. So they got Copperwood back, but they could not keep up. Like they had a good first period, I thought, Saturday.
Yeah.
Or Friday.
They've struggled on the big ice there the couple times they've been. Yep. 3 times now they've been there, 6 games, and not close to really getting a win, I don't think.
All right, you guys ready? I'm all ready.
Let's do it.
All right.
Talk about the game. Let's go.
Let's do it. Let me make sure I got everything going. Yes, I do. Let's start the show. This is the GPL podcast, sponsored by Jerry Peters and First Class Mortgage. Our expertise, your peace of mind. Visit us at firstclassmortgage.com. Now, here's Jupe and Vigo. Good evening and welcome to the GPL podcast, episode number 185. Well, it's Buckeye week, and when it's Buckeye week, we always have Paul Caponigri on. And Paul, Cappy, how you doing?
Good, guys. How are you? Yeah, Buckeye week. I mean, you don't have to label me as just
Oh,
Buckeye,
no, we're gonna
Buckeye guy. Okay, well, that's fine. But yeah, it's good to be back. What's this number? Is this my sixth time?
Oh,
you had the record. You had it on Twitter a while ago. I remember.
Yeah, it's getting up there.
I made it in there.
It's getting up there. I believe that
twice a season. I'm expecting it.
Oh, a little cut out in the audio there, but that's not so bad. But Vigs, quite the interesting weekend. This past weekend, Arizona State came in missing some guys, COVID. And maybe the message was also sent by Coach Mochko after the Notre Dame debacle, but 20-2 was the weekend, Vigs.
Not pretty for ASU at the end of nearly a month-long road trip. Anxious to probably get back under some sun for a couple days of R&R. It's a team that was missing 7 players due to illness or injury or precautionary COVID reasons. They were definitely outmanned and outgunned on the big ice, and they have not looked good when they've come to 3M at Mariucci Arena, and just chalk up another weekend where they disappoint. I kind of hope that ASU gets their footing under them and they could become a program that could join the Big Ten. And I know they've played games along the way where they've been competitive and they can score goals. Heck, they put up plenty against Notre Dame. But when it came to playing with the Gophers this last weekend, they had a hard time getting the puck. It's one of those games where, they should have brought 2 pucks.
and Cappy, I just think they were just out of gas. You're short guys. You've got a club goalie playing part of the first game. They've been on the road forever. It has been just a flat out grind for Arizona State.
Yeah, I think at the start of the year when they were saying you're glad that we had a season, right? Because they're just happy to have what they had, but at some point, I don't care how mentally strong you are, when you lose guys and this is the end of their road trip, they know they haven't had success. So your mind's already kind of coming in there like, man, and Minnesota's coming off of a sweep there. So they're coming, like all the dominoes were lined up for this, maybe not this much of a pounding both nights, but you could, you sense that if this there was a good chance this might happen, at least the first night. The second night, the game stayed, they got it to 4-2, and then it was like third period, whammo. But yeah, hey, I mean, the Gophers kind of needed to do that, get back on track a little bit too. So Arizona State, I think, their coach is going to look at this like this year as kind of like hey, this is, we got a long way to go. We did have some success in the past, but we weren't playing a schedule like this before.
But Vigs, it really is more about Arizona's just trying to stay alive, and I think they did a great thing. They're on the road all year, but they're playing in quite a few schools that don't have conferences. They're not playing right now.
Yeah, I think ASU, all the players would say they'd much rather be playing their entire season on the road than having to hang up the skates for the year. I mean, there's a lot of other schools where it's difficult for players to be on the ice. You look at the D3 schools and the smaller schools, it's a struggle. And so I think they're thankful that their administration is allowing them to go through all the protocols that the Big Ten wants them to go through, and they get a season out of it. It's just too bad that they ran into a very motivated Gopher team, because that first game they came ready to play. You saw a team that was getting in on the forecheck, very cognizant that they had to get their ground game fixed.
Very aggressive.
Working and very aggressive. There are numerous shifts where you just saw people add on the train cars. And when that happens, the opposing D gets tired and you just keep working the puck in the offensive zone and you get easy goals around the net. And I think that's a recipe for success that Minnesota has to take out of this weekend. We know that sometimes they get in some bad habits. We'll talk about it as we go on. Coach Motzko talked about it a little bit on his radio show this week, and then again at availability. He kind of wanted to walk it back a little bit, but there are some things about the Gophers game that show themselves at time and keeps it a tight game. And when you're playing against a really defensive team that's got veteran guys that can counter on you, it can be a recipe that'll get you into trouble.
But one thing Motzko's been talking about a lot, he's got to get McLaughlin and Walker going. They did get going this weekend. So maybe a tired team and from Arizona State was something that allowed, some of these guys who haven't been scoring as much kind of kick their game into gear and get them going.
Well, I thought it was a good weekend for them against ASU. And I think putting Scott Reedy on that line puts them more into that possession mindset because he makes so many intelligent plays on the rink where he maintains possession or extends a possession by winning a puck race. And he adds a lot to that line. I think Walker and McLaughlin can get into trouble when they turn into a one and done type line rush unit. They're coming down the rink, they're trying to beat a guy one-on-one, or they get in a position where, it's pretty much even up and they throw a puck on net that just turns into a turnover. So I think having Reedy on that line maybe gets them into a higher level of playing, and maybe that'll rub off on them and just make them more dynamic.
So now one thing, Cappy, is that Arizona State, obviously they've had guys out from illness. They've had some COVID things. And now that's, starting to hit some other teams. You've got somebody like a Michigan who's shutting everything down for a couple of weeks now. Looks like they're going to, they may need to use that kind of open weekend at the end of the year to sneak in a couple games.
Yeah, ironically, they're the one team not playing this weekend. Obviously, Arizona State is leaving, so there's going to be some gaps, and they're the team that's not on the schedule this week. They've already canceled Penn State. I don't think they're going to be able to play Michigan State that following Tuesday, even though they're eligible, because at least from what I read, they're shut down for 14 days. Like, it's not like I could be wrong, but I don't think they can do anything for those. So they'd have 1 day of practice after doing that. So I don't see that feasible. They do have a talented team, but not even those young guys could do that after 14 days completely shut down. So, I talked to, we'll talk more about Ohio State recently, but they haven't had a full team all season. They've had guys out bit by bit as the season's gone on. So everyone's dealing with it. Wisconsin obviously had it earlier. So it's kind of timing thing. Michigan's probably happy this happened now and not a first week of March, so, if it's going to happen. So yeah, not ideal, but this is the world we're in.
And knock on wood, the Big Ten has had some pretty good luck. Most of the teams have been getting in there in allotted games. And I see Tim Hapke in the chat kind of saying UMass has gotten in 17 games already, and BU has only gotten in 6. So, you look at the Big Ten, they've been doing pretty good getting their games in, but you look out east and in other places, it's kind of been a disaster.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I think that just shows you how fragile everything is with hockey. Even with all the testing, the testing is down it's a metal detector for that moment, but it's not going to show you that you're not going to be contagious the next day or the day after. It's just a point in time thing that they're trying to do to contain things. And I feel like some groups are doing it better than others about isolating. We just saw the Washington Capitals have to have some of their star players out for 4 games because they're gathering in hotel rooms, and the NHL found out. And it's a big sacrifice that these players are making to try to make this season happen. And even when the infectious cases come up, it's such a contagious virus. It's not really their fault for, going to their dorm room or walking to class or picking up some food or going to Costco or whatever it is. It doesn't take much for the virus to get in. You just hope that the testing allows them to contain it and keep the season going. And I think that's one of the reasons why the Big Ten's still able to go, is because they are doing that testing. So anything that does hit the team can get contained fairly quickly. And some of the other groups, they're not doing that.
Well, since the Big Ten is doing so much better, they went ahead and announced a few days ago, Cappy, that the Big Ten tournament's going to be in Notre Dame at Compton Arena. It's just kind of a nice central place where all the teams will be in a 7-team tournament at one place. How do you think that's the way to go?
I guess. Was Detroit going to be the spot or Minneapolis? Or I actually think that maybe the NCAA tournament might be in Minneapolis come end of March. That's a whole nother discussion. But yeah, I think it's a lot of people have talked about it. It's centralized, so it's kind of in the middle for buses if you're going to go that way. South Bend's a small town. There's not a ton of people around there. And there's not going to be fans. And I think someone noticed that Notre Dame has done horribly at home this year. So it's not going to be a big home advantage. If there's not going to be any fans, I think the theme of this year is how do we make it as fair and how do we get it done, safely. And I think it checks off the box. It's a beautiful arena. I don't know if you guys have either been there. It's a beautiful facility. The Blackhawks have had training camp there several times. So it's set up to, host some extra people if needed. There's a second rink right now. They have a practice rink right there too. So I'm sure there were a lot of discussions. It makes sense in my mind.
Yeah. I think Todd Molesky pointed out that when the Big Ten was wondering if they wanted to do a bubble to start the year, like the NCHC did, that Notre Dame was the likely site just because of all the conveniences of the different locker rooms, the connected hotels, the 2 rinks. There were just a lot of things that made it possible for them to host a lot of teams on site for an event like this. And I'm just glad that they're going to be able to try to get it done.
Exactly. I mean, that's really the bottom line, right? Is finding a way to get it done.
And this is, if you can't have fans, you might as well go on campus. It makes sense. It could be any campus, but I think it's a good choice due to that central location. And, there won't be fans there.
And they've like got the hybrid rink. A bit wider. So that should be good for Minnesota, right?
But the benches are on the opposite sides, which, it's strange. We get, I don't know how many rinks are set up that way, Viggs, but we know that Michigan State is and Notre Dame is. It's definitely not the norm.
No, everyone's gone away from that, so it's kind of a little quirk to get used to. Old Mariucci was like that too, so it's something to watch during the game. Players just have to remember they have to get 2 feet on the ice before they can touch the puck. I don't know, Cap, if you saw that, we had that come up in a Gopher game recently, and everybody was confused about someone coming right out of the box to play the puck.
I didn't see that. I mean, I've seen. Well, I remember that they changed the rule a couple years ago back because the guy was coming from the bench and the puck was down the other end and it had nothing to do with the play, but the guy wasn't within the feet. They got rid of that, if I recall. I know Penn State. We were doing a game, I think, and Penn State had that happen, and you're like we're trying to figure out where this penalty happened, and it was a guy coming from, I think might have been the goalie even, just like very I would say kind of ridiculous over refereeing or ruling kind of thing. But
Viggs, in this case, it was more like, wasn't it the Notre Dame series when a Notre Dame player came out of the box and played the puck before both his feet were on the ice? So the puck was coming up the ice. He reached out with his stick before he was fully on the ice. Isn't that what happened, Viggs?
Yeah. He had the expiring penalty. The penalty was expired. Puck was coming. Man. He just played it with the stick before he stepped on, which apparently is
see, that's the kind of play that I don't want to happen if I'm doing the game, because then I'm not going to pull out the rule book and go to like the 78th page. Like I think I'm like, I don't need that. That game, I don't know if you guys, it was on NBC. Ohio State Notre Dame, where they had all kinds of things going on in that game, where the guy got a penalty, but then, or they didn't get a penalty, and then Notre Dame went down and scored. But then they went back and reviewed it, and they called it a penalty, and so they took the goal. First, they weren't going to take the goal off. Then they did take the goal off. Then Ohio State got a 5-minute penalty and scored 2. So instead of being down 1, they were up 1. Or up 2, I think.
Yeah.
It was something that 3 goals.
It was really goofy. And they were asking.
And I'm like, thank God I wasn't doing that game.
That was an interesting game. I was watching that game, and it was like, did they really just do that?
Right.
But the thing is,
hockey's crazy with rules, and it's tough, but it makes sense.
I think in that specific instance, they made the correct calls.
For sure.
Because it was a check from behind. It was a major penalty. I think they were kind of getting permission. Hey, can we do this? Can we take the goal off?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they had the guy come down with the rule book to show them. Yes, the goal has to come off too.
Yep.
So like even the referees, didn't know, which okay, then I would have felt better if I was calling that game, didn't know the rule. Okay, if the referees don't know, I'm okay with that. Always learning.
Always learning. Oh boy. Well, I see we got quite a few people in chat. If any of you folks would like to ask questions, they're there. I know we got one question on Twitter I'll hit right after this, but first, we need to hear from our sponsor.
Hey, fellow GPLers, this is Jerry Peters from First Class Mortgage. Interest rates are near all-time lows and property values are on the rise. Lower your interest rate and remove monthly PMI at the same time to save thousands of dollars, or use the equity in your home for debt consolidation and home improvement. The housing market is still hot, so make sure you're prepared by getting a pre-approval letter from me before you start shopping. Mention you heard about me on the GPL podcast and receive a $300 closing cost credit. Some restrictions do apply. Call me today at 612-940-3291 or visit firstclassmortgage.com to fill out a free online application. My NMLS number is 480200. First Class Mortgages is 322842. This is not an offer to lock into an interest rate agreement under Minnesota law. First Class Mortgage is an equal housing lender.
All right. And of course, we always thank Jerry for sponsoring the GPL podcast. Are you still there, Cappy? He's gone dark.
We got some connection issues way down there.
Yeah, by the way, Cappy is in Florida right now. Oh, son of a you-know-what. That's kind of what happens, though. Well, Viggs, I notice a question in here. It looks like it's about a recruit. Tim Hapke, he was in the chat earlier, but I noticed he asked earlier today, your thoughts on Huglin? I think that's how you pronounce his name. And if he stays healthy, is he expected to join the Gophers next year? I see him as a bonus recruit, since he's been kind of forgotten about in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think he's definitely a forgotten about player. He had that. We got you back, Cappy.
We got you back, Cappy. We can hear you. We just can't see you, and that's okay.
If that's what the Wi-Fi allows, that's what it allows. Yeah, Huglin had the back injury that he had to have surgery on. He tried to play through it, rehab it, try to avoid it, but he's back now with Fargo, and he's looked really good in the first couple games back. And they're still saving a spot for him, I think. He hasn't decommitted or anything. I'll look for another spot on Twitter. You never know with college hockey with how things go. But I think he is a player who's shown offensive skill where he could be a top 6 college player. And I think you find a way to make it work with a guy like that.
Wow, that was really weird. It's like Cappy disappeared and then he showed up at another window on our thing. And now I wonder if he can hear us. Can you hear us, Cappy? Are you there, Cappy? I just see a frozen picture. I think he's trying to figure it out. This is fun. I hear something. Is he there?
This is what happens when you go live.
Hey, I don't mind it. It's fun. People are dealing with this type of stuff every day now with Zoom and connections. And
am I back? Am I back? Can you hear me?
We can hear you again.
I can hear you.
Well, that's good. It's not the greatest audio, but we can hear you. That's all that matters. If you want, you can even pause your video.
I can hear you.
Wow,
I can hear you. How about now?
We can hear you. Yes.
Come on.
Well, maybe he can't hear us.
Or no? Hello, guys.
Yes. I bet you he can't hear us.
He can hear me. Okay. What a mess. Okay, good.
Hey, Cappy, try that.
I can hear you guys. I can hear everything.
Okay.
Yes, I can hear you guys. Yes.
Sweet.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Am I delayed?
I don't know. Are you delayed? I'm just gonna go quiet for a second. I see him nodding. This is great podcasting for right away. This is great stuff. Now, I wonder if
because you're not hearing me until 5 seconds later.
I wonder if I should kick him out. I wonder if I can kick him out.
All right, guys, I'm going to bounce off and come back.
That would be a great idea.
So just to keep going with that question a little bit,
Yes, kick me out.
I think that next year for forward recruits, the ones coming in look like Pitlick, Hughlin, Lucius, and Nyes. Those look like
that's
the
a
forwards.
Pretty good list.
Those are all guys who are talented, drafted type players, a lot of skill. They're all kind of top 9 type guys. It's really hard to know what's going to happen with the seniors and juniors on the roster. They have the option to come back and play another year of eligibility. There's a lot of talk around college athletics of whether or not schools will have the kind of budget where they can afford to bring players back for an extra year of scholarship hockey or football or basketball, whatever it may be. But they have guys that are talented coming back in the lineup. So I think any kind of guys that they lose, like I will obviously probably see Reedy, Munson move on, LaFontaine move on, but you never know.
Okay, I see Cappy. Can Cappy hear us? Oh, he's nodding his head.
Loud and clear. You guys have been hearing you the whole time.
You're synced up again, though.
You're synced up again.
Yes, right. Good. I went into airplane mode, did everything I had to, did all the little things, turned it on and off. It's usually what they tell you: turn it off and turn it back on.
Hey, think about this when we were kids, or any kind, 10 years ago, that we'd be meeting all like this and broadcasting at the same time. I think it's pretty amazing. I thought it was cool that we would broadcast live audio all the time for our podcast.
Oh, this is great. I mean,
it's
try to hang in there as long as I can now. Were you guys talking about seniors and that kind of decision and all that kind of stuff? Or
we were kind of talking about some future recruits coming in and how that's going to affect things, and some of the more quiet guys coming in and things like that. So,
I mean, how we were just talking about with Arizona State, everyone playing this year can come back next year, from what I've been told. So, and I think I was talking to one of the coaches, Ohio State assistant, JB Bittner, who I played with. I'm like, what do you guys, how does that work? What are you guys talking about? Who's staying? Is Tommy Napier coming back? When is that discussion? What about the goalie you're bringing in for him? All that stuff. Are there extra scholarships right now? How is that going to work for Minnesota if McManus and Reedy want to come back or whatever? They want them to come back, and you know what I mean? There's just how are you recruiting guys right now? What are you telling people? It's wild.
Vigs, I'm assuming they're just, with Minnesota, when they've got people coming in, they're just going to try to just keep things the same, aren't they?
I think that's the thing that they're floating out there. They're going to have to get Mark Coyle to sign off on having guys like Reedy and McManus, if they want to come back, keeping scholarships, because I think they'll be able to go over the 17 in this case to handle situations like that. But you have players, as they age out and they get drafted, they're going to want to be playing college hockey too. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, because Pitlick and Lucius are the only two that have their NLIs signed. I think we'll see guys like Hughlin come in, but it's hard to know. I think guys like Braz and Miller, the way things are going, they would probably benefit from another year in the USHL. And Motts has been able to convince guys to do that in the past. He was talking that a lot with Kester this week, how him agreeing to go back in the USHL for another year has really allowed him to come in as a freshman and contribute. When those three guys went away to the World Juniors, he stepped up and was ready to play. It wasn't like he was a learning to play kind of guy. He was ready to plug in, and staying that extra year of junior hockey really prepared him for that. So I think that's going to be kind of the thing that they're going to be focusing on as they figure out who to come in.
I think hockey's too is lucky to have that, to be honest. Look at other sports. Where are you going to go? if you're a football player or a baseball player, they don't have juniors. So I think hockey actually, and you've seen a lot of schools, Michigan and Wisconsin do it a lot because they get so many young guys that might leave the next year that they put guys and tell them, hey, you might come in next year, but you might come in 2 years because Quinn Hughes decided to come back for his sophomore year, stuff like that. So, I mean, hockey's got some luck on its side. The fact that guys have an option, and the team, the coaching staff can have an option. Like, who do we, as long as we are allowed to by the school, because obviously it costs more money. But yeah, hockey's kind of in a better situation than most sports.
Yes, it's going to cost more money, and that's kind of one of the things here is that every program is bleeding right now.
Right.
With the loss of football money coming in, Viggs, we saw Tom Molesky talking about that today, talking about, how Wisconsin is going to lose like 40, 50 million or whatever, even though they've made even a lot of adjustments. So we know all these programs in the Big Ten, whether they play football or hockey or not, every dollar is going to make a difference these days.
Yeah, and that's why I think fundraising is the big issue right now for these schools to try to figure out how to balance their budgets as much as they can. I did misspeak earlier. Nyes and Braz did eventually sign their NLIs later. It was just late for them come through. But I have a hard time seeing Braz fit in right now with their pipeline. It could be like that Mason Nevers situation where he signed his NLI a year early, and maybe it was just to stop the phone calls. It's like, we're going there. I'm pretty sure that I myself as a high school kid want to play another year of juniors, but I just want people to stop.
Can you do that?
You can, but the school can't tell that player then that they don't have a spot. The player himself can go, I want to delay a year, but the school can't tell him, sorry, we don't have a spot for you. And I think there's a couple schools that have gotten into trouble a little bit with that. It's hard to know on these kids. The current coaching staff doesn't like to talk recruiting very often, and they dodge a lot of questions there, but that's okay. Bob likes to talk about players on campus.
And recruiting is all messed up right now, Viggs, isn't it? They can't see anybody. They can't have anybody in. It's just, it's kind of affecting the pipeline, of the people, they haven't even seen yet, I guess.
Yeah, it's a dead period right now for the Big Ten. They're not allowed to do any recruiting, so they're stuck watching video. And it's pretty good for the USHL. It's okay for the NHL. High school games really depends on the manager or whoever is doing the stream. Some of the streams are really good, but then others are just like, okay, not going to get much out of this.
But imagine this happening back in your day, Cappy. I mean, everything is shut down. You don't get to go visit. I mean, are you going to send them a VHS tape of your games? I mean,
yeah.
We talk about this technology that we're using right now in Zoom, and I guess they can do that type of stuff. But if this happens 10, 15 years ago, it would be much more damaging to probably all sports.
Yeah, you'd have to rely on a lot of coaching relationships in juniors, I think, and it would be harder for like maybe a surprise guy that kind of jumps up. A lot of these coaches have seen so many players already. They're recruiting them when they're 15, 16. It would be a lot of more on the coaches and looking at numbers. I mean, it'd be like Europe. You used to go to Europe based on numbers. Nobody knew if you were any good. But if you played in the AHL and you played 20 games, you were deemed a better, you'd get a better chance and a better spot in Europe based pretty much on that. Not really on anything other than having games at a certain level. So it would be like that was and relying on coaches. That was kind of how I got over to Europe, was based on a friend coach who knew that I'd play, all that. So yeah, old school would have been interesting, but now, luckily now every game is on video somewhere.
So now we head to Ohio State this weekend, Viggs. We've got, Ohio State was here earlier this year with a 4-1 loss and a 2-0 loss. they hopefully want to kind of avenge that and maybe get back into the race here. We've got a 5:00 p.m. game on Friday, a 4:00 p.m. game on Saturday. It's a little early times. We're all adjusting to that this year. But what are your initial thoughts about this weekend? And what does Ohio State need to do to kind of get back into this, Vigs?
Well, I think this is a back to business weekend for Minnesota. Steve Rawlik plays a very tough style of hockey, and he shuts down the neutral zone, and he has a lot of good special teams work with Steve Miller operating those crews, and it's going to be a challenge for Minnesota. If they play kind of some of the sloppy hockey that you saw at times against ASU, you're not just going to get soft rushes back the other way. There's going to be a lot of speed going the other way and pressure. And if you are a team that starts having one and dones or you extend your shifts too long, you're going to get caught. So I think this is a real measuring stick. That first series against Ohio State, I don't think the Buckeyes were quite ready for big time hockey. They looked soft on the draws. They looked a little loose with their structure, and Minnesota took advantage. I think it's going to be a very different series this weekend.
And of course, I'm always making fun of him, but Cappy, Mr. Napier is pretty darn solid back there.
He's one of those goalies that is kind of a guy you can make fun of because he doesn't play like a quiet game. If you watch him, he's talking to players. He's up and out of his net. He's very quirky. I mean, most goalies are quirky and weird, yeah. But he initiates with the referees and players on the other team if they come near him. So he reminds me a little bit of Ron Hextall, a little bit old school. But he's not a guy that just focuses on the game. I think it actually helps him. I talked to their coaches about it. He feels like he's engaged more, I think, if he's talking and doing his thing. But yeah, he's a guy that can steal a game. He hasn't done that. He's kept him in games. But he's getting more shots this year. That's the biggest thing is, if he's getting 30, he's going to win you some games, but he's been getting 35, 40 in a lot of games. And that elevates the task, and they don't have the scoring depth as they've had in the past couple of years.
And they don't have the team defense they used to have either.
They lost 3 seniors last year that played a ton. That the young guys are coming, but it's hard to that 5-man thing that he talks about. And they didn't have excuses are out the window, but they haven't had a full team going the whole time to implement their stuff. Everyone else, but if you had a veteran team like Minnesota does, that doesn't help you, but you get along quicker as opposed to a young team that doesn't have the talent like Michigan does. Michigan those young guys, they can just run out there and out talent the hell out of you. Ohio State's got some nice talent, but they don't have enough that if they're not playing the game that Rawlik wants them to, they can struggle. So they're a building process there for sure.
And Vigs, goaltending, we've talked about this. Minnesota's been better with this year with LaFontaine, but what makes a goalie even better when the team in front of him does the smart thing, gets the puck out of the zone, does much better defensive coverage. And maybe Napier doesn't have that as much this year, but he's still doing pretty good. But it is really a team effort.
Yeah, I think team defense goes a huge way into a goalie's numbers. And we saw that with Minnesota in the first half. They did such a good job of shutting all their opponents down. There were hardly any rushes against. Their special teams was really good. I think that's one thing Minnesota's talked about, building some depth to their special teams. I think when Walker or McLaughlin takes a penalty, they kind of get out of sorts because that first group of Nelson and Myers is really good. Winning draws, establishing the first couple 30, 40 seconds of a kill. And then when they can go to Walker or McLaughlin with that next group, they're speedy. They put tons of pressure on the other power play. The other power play might be trying to extend their shift and get a chance, and they can create turnovers against ASU. Those guys are just hounding the ASU power play and being really dangerous. But when those guys take penalties, then you've got some other guys filling that role, and they've struggled a little bit. So I think that's really key to a goalie's numbers is getting the support from units like that.
I'm seeing a question, another one from Tim Hapke in the chat, Vigs. He's asking about Staudiker. How's he looking for this weekend? I know Motzko talked about that a little bit today.
Yep, Staudiker's supposed to be back. apparently he could have gone against ASU, but they were being cautionary with bringing him back into action, being non-conference and things like that. So he should be good to go. He's practicing. Scott Reedy, they probably could have brought him back even earlier too, but they're just being really cautious with, his injury. It's something he's dealt with a lot the last couple of years. It's always kind of been a nagging thing. He was hoping it wouldn't come back this year, but it did. And that's why he's on the wing, because his injury, he doesn't like to go in the face-off circle with this one. So
read into it as you want there, folks. Read into it as you want. So, Cappy, you're vacationing in Florida again, aren't you here? Are you going to get in any golf down there? Have any fun?
No fun. I don't want to rub in, because I left Chicago on Monday or so, and then they got dumped 6 or 8 inches of snow. So,
so sad. That's just so terrible.
Yeah. For you. Well, I'll try to enjoy my time here a little bit. It's a little warmer down here, so and I'll have my.
Do you get BTN on your TV down there? Or are you going to be streaming it on your phone?
I do not. I don't know. I'm going to have to watch the replay. I won't be able to stream it on my phone, I don't think, or my computer, because I have the BTN to go. But if it's on BTN, you can't watch it live. I don't believe, unless I'm missing on something. I think you have to watch a replay. I don't know. Maybe I can. I don't know. But those usually don't come up on there with the option.
Pizzo's got to get you connected or something. I mean, he's got.
Well, they do. They do. They get me connected. I get BTN Go to watch all the games I want, but it's usually the ones that aren't on BTN. And
JB can't get you the team.
You get the SEC network down here. You don't get BTN. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
a lot of hockey in the SEC network this time of year.
Right. Alabama versus Auburn. Yeah. So, but no, I'll get to watch them. It's funny with Ohio State, I watched last week. I watched Friday's game or the first game against Michigan State. And after kind of, doing their game against Michigan the week before, I was like, they just looked lost, or Michigan looked, just in peak form. And when I don't know if they can, I think Minnesota may be the only team that can stop them if they're going on all cylinders. So they had a great game Saturday. They were awesome. They outshot Michigan State. They went into Munn and went 5-1. Munn is a tough place to play for anybody, and they went in and played a really good game.
I watched that game. I'm starting to prep my kitchen for some painting. So I left the room for a little bit to do some work, and all of a sudden I came back and it was because it was tied in the third period, wasn't it? And
they were down. Actually, they were down, but they were out shooting the whole game. Yeah, and they finally tied it, and then they got ahead, and then it was boom.
I come back and it's 3 or 4-1 already. I'm like, what the heck did I miss? It was real quick. So I try to keep all those. Yep. I try to put those games on because you know what? There's nothing else on TV I'd want to watch right now. So it's college hockey. I love it.
You're pre-scouting too.
So Cappy, what does Ohio State look like when they're playing well this year?
Well, watching that game, they were just skating really well. They looked confident. Versus Michigan, they didn't look confident. They looked scared to have the puck on their stick. And, and that has a lot to do with your opponent, I think. So I think they had a little more fear going into those games. And maybe they didn't against Michigan State. Michigan State's a good team, but they don't have the firepower. They're going to grind you kind of like them. So they're looking themselves in the mirror. I think they had a little more confidence. I think when you have confidence, you play faster. When you don't, you slow down, you throw the puck away, you're chasing the game. So when they're confident with the puck and playing their game, they're playing the Ohio State game that you would remember. They just don't have that consistency yet as a young group, learning on the fly. So that's why I think, this weekend could be interesting if they can, they might be able to split, because I think they can bring that game at least one time against Minnesota. I'm not doing any predictions yet, but I'm just saying, if Saturday's game was wow, they looked really strong. And then, Sunday they get shut out 2-0. So they're not going to score a ton. I mean, they can, but
roller coaster.
They don't have those they don't have those top end guys like Lazinski and Jobst and those guys right now. I got some nice couple young guys like Traylor is a really good little player, and I love his attitude. He's gonna be a future captain there. But Quinn Preston, Gustav Wesson was back. That was good for them. They're missing him for games. I mean, he's center. They can be a little thin. Traylor and him up front. That's a number 1 and 2. That's a good 1-2 punch at center. But they're still trying to get some young guys on the D end. They just a little thin back there and experience, and that's when a veteran team like Minnesota comes in and can kind of put some pressure on them and maybe take that confidence away.
What's their special teams been like their power play units? Because there's just so many new guys on those spots.
The one guy that's kind of taken a big step this year on defense is Gabriel. He's always been known as an offensive guy. A friend of mine coached him in Waterloo and called him a riverboat gambler because he was a very my friend is a very chip it in, chip it out guy, and didn't like that kind of game, the risky play. But he came to Ohio State, and we actually interviewed him previous to the series against Michigan, and he talked about how he came into Ohio State. It was the first time he ever got healthy scratched, and it was like a shocker to him. And he's slowly built his game to where by his junior year he was a regular playing in the top 4, but then this year is his first chance to kind of implement the offensive side more. And he's kind of running the quarterbacking that first power play. So I think he's done pretty well. He got a big shot back there. But their power play's been inconsistent. I think the numbers are okay, but it's one of those things where they'll look bad and then they'll get one on the rush. Or, it's one of those kind of power plays where it doesn't look dynamic, but somehow they're 1 for 4 on the power play. That kind of thing is how I see it.
That was the Gophers like all last year.
Man, the Gophers on that big ice. I was against Arizona State. They reminded me of my time, like zipping it around and just using those seams. And it's fun watching them when they know where they are and how they can take advantage of a team on that ice.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've seen 10-goal weekends. It almost seemed like a
20-goal weekends, you mean?
Well, like 10-goal games, I should say.
Right.
10-goal games. I mean, even that second game, it was like, it's 4-2 coming into the third. It might be 5-2 or something like that. All of a sudden, they just blew up, and that was it. So that was kind of odd. But you talk about they had a great game. Ohio State the first game, then they get shut out. We've seen Notre Dame come into Mariucci, do a great job, and then they struggle against other teams. They struggle against Arizona State, Vigs. Minnesota's been kind of up there so far. They started, but everyone else is just kind of up and down and kind of very unpredictable. And then, Notre Dame comes into Minnesota and we're thinking Minnesota's doing really well. They've been predictable and then they're unpredictable. So it's kind of all over the place this year in the Big Ten.
I think that's just college hockey right now. It's hard to have consistency. You heard the players talk about how the coaching staff was almost kind of going easy on them up until the Notre Dame series. It's just like, let's just enjoy this season, stay healthy, keep everybody fresh. You guys have been through this before. You'll be fine. And then they play a real hard game like that. And it's a real strike to the reality. And I've heard the practices have been more intense, a lot more battling. And I think it's going to be a tough stretch for the players down the road here as they try to stay focused. But I think coaches this year with all the weird schedules and all the unknowns, I think there's just more roller coaster because they're not in their usual season plan. College hockey coaches take things pretty serious. When they get their season plan, they kind of put together their season practice plan, their season travel plan, their season conditioning plan. They're planners. And this year, that's all out the window. And so everything's a little bit more on the fly.
And we were even kind of talking about planning, when it comes to television before you came on, Vig. So I was talking with Cappy. Cappy, we're used to, you get the second half TV schedule. When everything's going to happen. And now you're kind of like, it's a week by week decision thing going on right now, especially for these TV networks.
Yeah, hey, you said a second half schedule. Usually you get the whole thing, and a month before the season starts. Obviously that wasn't going to happen this year. And what's making it even more difficult now is you have women's volleyball in there, and they do really well on the Big Ten Network.
Yeah.
And, they've already started their season, and now you got hockey, women's volleyball, wrestling, and then the basketballs, and obviously the men carry the freight there. But so I just think they're really just trying to piece things together. I think the good thing is that they are being able to play games earlier, like on a Friday. Yeah, you're going to have maybe a 4:00 game. They're adding a few slots there, which you can. You're not having fans, so a lot of people are at home, maybe working, but they're finishing their day at 4 or 5 o'clock, so they pop right on to watch the TV. So
I kind of like it. I kind of like it. These a couple of these days, like on a Friday, we play at 5. It's like, or kind of finish up your day. You don't have that long wait, and you're ready to go.
I think it benefits too. I think it's helping turn the wheel on the old. Oh my God, it's got to be Friday and Saturday, 7 o'clock every week. I think that that ship has probably sailed for good now, in terms of for everything, for everybody in every sport now. I think that times are going to be forever different for all sport, for a lot of sports going forward.
On the Minnesota side, Viggs, people have been concerned, I'm not going to be able to watch the games. The games aren't going to be on TV. Well, the funny thing is, every game so far, except for the very last series, is on TV. We don't know about what's going to happen with Michigan. Somebody's going to put that on because it's going to be two really great teams playing at Mariucci at the end of the season.
That's going to be,
Yeah. But, we've got one game that's stream only. That's that second Notre Dame game in a couple weeks. Actually, some networks will be picking it up, but not locally here. But yes, the TV schedule is weird this year, but this might be the best year for video/TV we've ever had.
Yeah, you might not get your Bally Sports Network, but there are ways to watch the game. And I'm sure if Cappy were to get in touch with JB, I'm sure he'd figure out a way to get him a stream and get him logged in so he could watch his Buckeyes. But if you're a fan, there are ways for you to watch. Maybe a little different than you're used to, but the games are there. The games are fun. This Gopher team has really got it humming, I think, in terms of talent. This is a great blue line that they have. They've got great goaltending. If they can get their forwards scoring at the level they're capable of, they're going to be a fun team to watch.
Yeah.
I think,
all right, go ahead.
Well, one last thing was, with that is, nobody's spending money on tickets. So by getting the BTN app, you can watch any of the games, besides the one, like the ones, if their games on FSN, that maybe some people don't have, you can watch those. I know you can watch those on the BTN app. Mm-hmm. So, you spend that money on that because you're spending, that's about maybe a quarter of what season tickets would be at most places, maybe a little more at Minnesota, but we don't need to talk about that. But yeah,
don't get the fans going now.
You get everything on there, and you're not paying for any tickets, so why not a few bucks to watch all the games?
All right, Cappy, it's time for your prediction. Minnesota coming into Ohio State this weekend. Your alma mater. How you feeling about it?
You know what? I feel, it's interesting. I kind of gave it away earlier, but I think it's going to be a split. Mm-hmm. I do. I think the Buckeyes are going to find a way to play their best game one of the nights, and Tommy Napier is going to play well enough. And I think on the ice at Ohio State's not the best. You get a lot of quirky bounces in there. It's a smaller sheet now. Minnesota's been flying around, in their arena. I think they're going to find a way to get one of the two.
Okay. All right, Viggs.
I was just remembering, I think it was last year, there was really bad ice for the Gophers Buckeyes series, wasn't it? It was a game. It came down to the last couple seconds. It's just like every scoring chance down the stretch was just puck bouncing
over a stick. And yeah.
I mean, Napier's not going to be able to knock off the goalpost off its moorings like he does when he's at Mariucci all the time. You can't do that to your home rink guy. But we can watch and see if it happens. He might go to it. But I do like the way Minnesota played coming out each game against ASU. I thought that they answered the bell after their weekend against Notre Dame, where you just saw them get frustrated and try to do too much on their own. I think there was a real strong effort to get the ground game going, to look for possession plays, and to win those second pucks. Because I think that's the biggest thing in hockey. You can't be one and done. If you're going to put the puck on net, you have to have players there to get rebounds or to chase down pucks in the corners. And if Minnesota's on their game, they're able to do that and apply consistent pressure. We will see if they're able to do that against Ohio State.
What is this? Is this a prediction or is this?
I know.
I mean, what are we doing here?
I got 5 minutes of show left. I got 5 minutes of show left.
You got as much show as you want, but
in that case, I want 3 more minutes.
Equal time. I'm
kidding.
So here's the thing. I think that Minnesota is going to be able to play that game against Ohio State. I still think Ohio State's a little green, and it could be that situation where Cappy was talking about how Ohio State against Michigan got a little starstruck, got a little nervous, and we've seen that out of young Minnesota teams too. When they play against somebody, they're not interested in extending their shifts. They don't want to get minus, when they're on the ice. They're not looking for scoring opportunities. They're looking, how can I shut down the other team? And how do I stay off the minuses? So I think sweep for Minnesota.
There it is.
I heard it coming. It just
there it is.
Say it already, man. I knew you were saying it. Just say it already.
I do think that second game is going to be a 1-goal game.
Oh.
So you're like 4-1, 3-2?
Yeah. I could see like a 5-2, 4-1, and then like a 2-1, 3-2 game the next night. I just think Minnesota right now has enough firepower where they can overcome some growing pains if Ohio State is there to answer the bell each night. And I think they have enough to get through right now, especially if they get in a special teams battle. I think Minnesota's got way more experience there than Ohio State does. I know Steve Miller does a great job with those units, but right now they got it going at Minnesota. It'll be fun to watch though.
Let's put it this way. The sweep one way or another is way less surprising if it's Minnesota. I'll say that. Okay.
Which is why I'm predicting sweep by Minnesota. That's just kind of what I do.
That's what you do.
That's what you do.
It's what I do. I mean, come on.
Consistent.
Not all the time. I just started it more this year when I felt the team was better.
I was a little slow to get on that.
They are, and I'll take my, what do I got, 30 seconds? No. I just wanted to kind of mention the whole Big Ten and how I see it right now. If you're going to break it down into kind of power ranking, not power tiers, I'll go tiers. But I think it's clearly Minnesota and Michigan at the top. Then I think Wisconsin's kind of that team below them, and then I think the other 4 are kind of, you could put them all, mash them all together. Penn State's coming on, and I think if they can get goaltending, they got a shot. And I'll say this: anybody can beat anybody. When we get to those 1 game, it's going to be anybody. But right now, when Michigan now, it's sad that they're going on a thing, but Michigan looked so good the last 4 games. They look like where they were at the start of the season. I think they got all those guys now. They're not worried about World Juniors or any of that stuff. The guys that didn't make it, like the Beecher didn't make it. I got 4 goals and 3. I just think Michigan is they got the goalie. I think them and Minnesota are just whew. But now Wisconsin's got guys back. Holloway's back, and then those other 4 are tough, but they just haven't been able to kind of scare you as much. So that's how I kind of break it down. I'm sure that a lot of people think that way, but that's just kind of how I see it.
Well, Michigan did move up into second place this weekend, but that they do have 2 games in hand, which is significant.
They got the talent that could go on a run and win 9 out of 10 easily if they get on a roll. And then what is it, March 6th-ish or 7th is the big series. that could be for first place, but if they get really hot.
Yeah, it's the last series of the year, March 5th and 6th.
Yeah, those 6-point weekends. If Minnesota has one more weekend where they don't get any points, that's where it can flip. If not, I think it's going to be very hard for them not to get points in a weekend. I think they're just too good, but that's where it could, that's a 12-point weekend. So one more of those, say in a Michigan getting 6 and them getting 0 is how they could flip it. But, it's going to be very difficult for that to happen.
I give a lot of credit to Notre Dame for getting the 6 points out of that series with Minnesota, but I think a lot of it had to do with Reedy and Staudacher being out of that lineup and the team just coming into that weekend unprepared. They just did not play with the right mindset to put themselves in a situation where they could win that series the way they played.
Yeah, I mean, look at Notre Dame. Look at they have 4 regulation wins against Minnesota and Michigan. They've swept both of them on the road. But then Michigan went in and swept, them, and I could see Minnesota easily going into South Bend and doing that. So, it's a wild card. Like I said, those 4 teams at the bottom, they're at the bottom, but they could beat anybody. Anybody can beat anybody.
That's why this is a fun league. That's why it's a great league. It always seems to be close. I mean, we had Notre Dame run away with it a couple years ago when they first came in the league, but and ever, I guess when Notre Dame came in, that's when things got competitive. Because at first, the first league, Minnesota just kept winning the league.
Minnesota was winning at it.
Yeah, because all the other teams are down, and they didn't have great playoff runs, but that's kind of what it was. But now the leagues are much more competitive. I mean,
the goaltending has gotten better. I feel like Cale Morris gave everyone the goal to go out and get good goaltending because nobody should have been winning the Big Ten goalie of the year and stuff. I mean, the numbers were pretty awful. It was fun. I loved goals and the league was exciting that way. When Notre Dame came in, it kind of just changed the league completely into a more of a defensive, brought them back down to the college mean, so to speak, in terms of goals. Yeah. I mean, games were 7, 8, 9 goals every game. It was fun to watch, but it kind of wasn't the best hockey.
O'Connor, he was a lot of fun to watch.
Oh, CCM line.
Yep, that was a good one.
Yeah, they were pretty good. Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us, Cappy. It's always great to have you on the podcast.
Absolutely. Hey, if you want me on, it would be a great one at the end of the year if we get to the end where they're trying to figure out NCAA stuff and how they're doing it and who's in it. Maybe they'll add me to the selection committee because that's going to be a shit show. I mean,
it's going to be complete.
How can it not be? It's, I think,
Well, like you look at the college hockey news, they've got their power rankings of the top 16, and they've got 4 WCHA teams in there.
Come on,
bit aggressive.
How many Big Ten teams do they have? Just 3?
I think
Minnesota,
3,
probably. Yeah.
I think Wisconsin might be in there still.
They should be.
I mean, they've got the talent. They've been up and down. I think with the COVID stuff and the junior stuff, that really hurt them more than a lot of other programs.
I think people know. Yeah, and I think people know. Just like with Michigan was 500 and they were still in the top 10 because people aren't stupid. They know, unless they start losing games, which I don't know, a ton of games. I don't see it happening. But
they'll get swept. They'll get swept at Minnesota at the end of the year, so that'll put them down.
Right, but that's not a bad sweep. There's bad sweeps out. That's not a bad sweep. But yeah, no, it's going to be a shit show. I don't know how else to put it.
But hopefully it's not only going to be a shit show, but we don't know what it's going to be. No one has said anything from the NCAA about what they're going to do. So we're assuming it's going to be a smoky room.
I asked Mel Pearson about it last week, and he gave the shoulder shrug. He doesn't know. Yeah. He knows. I think Mike Kemp and Bob Daniels are the only 2 that I know of right now that are in that committee as of right now that I know of, that I've heard and saw that they were named to this committee that is going to choose teams. So, boy, I hope the Big Ten is represented in that committee somehow, some way. But and in September, October, we were like hoping we just get a season. So if we're arguing about that in March and we got to that point, great. But it's also going to be interesting how they do it. I'm sure it's going to be a bubble. I can't see how it's not. But like I said, we could talk about that another time. That's enough of your time tonight, guys. Right?
Vigs, you got anything else for this weekend? What should we look for? Anything odd?
Just look for that first period if they're getting pucks deep or if they're turning it over and doing one and dones. I think that first 10 minutes is going to tell you a lot about how the weekend's going to go and if the message is there for them. Having Scott Reedy back, I think, is tremendous for their forward group and an important player for them.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for the GPL podcast. I'd like to once again thank Cappy for coming on with us. We'll be back next week to recap the Ohio State series and then preview the Badger series with Todd Molesky. For those of you currently watching live, stay tuned for a little bit of overtime. For the rest of you, we'll be back next week. Thanks for listening. Vigo's already ready to get up to get his beer.
Yeah. Cappy, you going to stick around for a beverage?
I don't have one, but I'll stick around. It's late. It's late.
Yeah, remember, it's like
11:36.
Yeah,
or
it's late for
11:35,
him.
whatever it is. No, I'm a night person anyway. I stay up watching.
So have you heard about
something.
this the Bally Sports Networks thing?
I haven't. What? Yeah, no.
So all the regional networks that Sinclair bought, they're selling their naming rights. So like Fox Sports North. Fox Sports North is going to become Bally Sports North. Fox Sports Wisconsin is going to be Bally Sports Wisconsin. All those Fox networks are going to become Bally's, and they're going to be pushing gambling.
Oh, so that makes they're finding
it
a
makes
way
sense,
for
but how's
streams, right?
It's going to be a thought that they might be saying, hey, this game's a close game. Why don't you head over to Bally's and put a bet on this game while during the game? I mean, I can see like the twins playing on Fox Sports North,
but isn't it all legal now? Is that why? That's why.
Well, in Minnesota, it's not. There is no sports betting in Minnesota.
I think it's still South Dakota and Iowa.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting. Are they going to be pushing gambling like during broadcasts?
I think they'll just be saying Bally or whatever often, right? I don't think they'll. But hey, look what they named the NHL division. Hey, it's all about revenue right now. Yep. Finding a way to make money because look what the NHL is going to be on the USA Network in a couple weeks.
All right, Beach, you got to talk so the camera's on you. I got the big screen on you now.
Sorry. This is Bell's 35th anniversary Imperial Stout. Extra special Russian Imperial Stout. Bell's, Comstock, Michigan.
Dark.
A lot of TV stuff going on. We had the Bally Sports announcement. NBC Sports is going away.
Gone. Crazy.
It's hard to believe.
It's funny. I was just listening to a podcast today, the Lebitard podcast. It's a really good kind of sports comedy. And he had Dan the Lebitard, guy. Yeah, he just signed on he just hired a CEO for his new company, John Skipper, who was the president of ESPN. And he was talking to him about things that he did at ESPN and regrets he had. And he brought it up twice about how not getting the NHL back. One, losing the NHL, and two, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago when NBC they were in a bidding with NBC to get hockey back. And he thought he had one more chip to play. And the guy came back to them and said, nope, just didn't even do one more negotiation and went right back and said, we're going to stick with NBC. We just signed with NBC. And he said one of his big regrets at ESPN. And I'm thinking about that now. And I'm like, there's no way that would have ever happened at ESPN. And I think NBC does a great job.
I think they do too.
But they're hidden. And I've said this, I've argued this for years with my friends and everybody. ESPN might not have offered the money, but you're going to get a lot more exposure because not us, we don't have to worry about us. We're going to find the game on NBC. We're talking about Joe in Kentucky, right? He's going to turn his TV on. He's looking for sports. He's going to turn on ESPN, right, first. And he's just going to see what's on there. And if it's a hockey game, maybe he hangs around for 10 minutes. Maybe he watches longer. But he's not going to accidentally run into NBC Sports Network. You know what I mean? You're not going to put that on unless you know, okay, I know hockey and I know hockey will be there. That's ESPN just would have been a better move in terms of trying to expand and finding those fringe fans, because most people who watch hockey know, okay, I know where I got to watch NBCSN.
Well, they have a chance to get it back now. Because obviously, that's kind of one of the reasons why I think NBC is dropping the network. They're like, hey, our NHL contract's running out. It's costing us a lot of money. This is probably the time to bow out. And now ESPN can get back in. But the difference between, now and then, though, is that ESPN didn't have the NBA back then, I don't believe.
Well, the first time around they didn't. But 4 or 5 years ago, whatever that was, when they could have gotten them back, that was when ESPN was in that middle of that huge, craziest amount of money NBA deal they gave them.
Yeah.
But no, now they can probably lowball the hell out of them, to be honest. And I think it would be the play. Where else what other option do you have? I mean, Fox. I think they're going to have to kind of go crawling with their tail between their legs to ESPN, and hopefully.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, they do a great job. I was watching the Nashville-Chicago game before we started here.
Sure.
And they've been having a lot of games. They've been doing some back-to-back games, and I mean,
sure.
NBC
Sports
Sports
trying to get in all those games that they didn't have.
They've been showing a lot, and they do a great job. But it's unfortunate. But ESPN is really the only place they can go, Vigs, if they want, to be seen.
Well, I mean, they are going to try to do the USA Network for some of the NBC, because NBC has a lot of other networks that they can put games on. They probably just won't have the wall-to-wall
But good luck
coverage.
with that. People finding even that. People are going to be looking for USA Network. They're going to be looking to watch Modern Family, and they're like, "Oh wait, with hockey game on."
Might have a good lead in.
I'm just saying, right? No, I've heard that. I mean, you can't. It'd be sad if they just cut off hockey and all you had was your regional games in your city.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it's all changing too. Like streaming, even with sports now, it's just evolving a ton and fast. Like, you know what I mean? Like, where'd the DVD go? It's long gone. That was around for 10 years. I think the streaming thing is coming so fast and furious. I don't think everyone knows how to handle it completely.
I would say streaming has improved a lot, but I still think there's a ways to go there. I mean, Viggs was texting me a couple weeks ago. He's like, I'm watching your Twitter and I'm seeing reactions to goals, and I'm not seeing it on my stream for about another 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Wasn't that happening to you, Viggs?
Yeah. I was having a hard time getting I was having a hard time getting the radio to sync up because it was so far behind that you just couldn't do it. So I like to balance my radio and TV commentators.
But even radio sometimes, we've seen it with Minnesota. The radio is a good minute and a half behind, a live television broadcast. And, we're broadcasting right now, and our delay for the video is 15 to 20 seconds. It's not bad at all. And we've always kind of had that. It's like if we could figure this out just doing it like this, you would think some of these networks could do it, but there's probably a lot of big bucks with streaming and all that stuff, that computing power, who knows?
Yeah. The NHL is, ESPN, I assume that they could start picking, they could agree to something now. I mean,
That's what it sounds like.
If NBC is dropping them, I can't imagine why they wouldn't right now.
Well, NBC's not dropping them. They're dropping their network, but their NHL contract also expires at the end of this season.
Right, but I'm sure they can somehow make a deal. If they're dropping them, who's going to have the playoffs? The network.
Well, that includes the playoffs.
That'll be on CNBC, MSNBC.
Well, they did that
USA,
anyway.
They do
did
that anyway. Yeah.
They do that anyway. And I love that.
Okay. I mean, well, sure. No, yeah, you want all the games on, obviously, before you get the one game on and then you get updates. Yes, it's great that they're playing as many as you can, but okay. If I'm the NHL, I'm trying to get back to ESPN as soon as possible.
I'm trying to get the most eyes on my league that I can if I'm them.
Well, but that's never been Gary Bettman. Gary Bettman's been more about the deal.
Well, I think that's because of the owners.
About the eyes.
That's because the owners
thinking,
like the New York and New Jersey teams, they get a big local TV contract, and they want that and they want to protect that. What's got to happen? There's got to be enough other owners that say, no. We need to rethink ourselves and figure out how we can grow our game so we're not the 6th or 7th sport in the U.S. in 10 years. Because MLS is coming
now, though. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, well, yeah, right. If you're not counting college, obviously, yes, they're
right.
5 or 6 probably. I mean, golf's, I don't know, but this to me is a no-brainer because I've been a proponent of it for a long time. Going ESPN, no, it's not my money, it's not my business. I'm just like you talking about getting it where people can watch it. Like I was just telling him, like if it's down here in Florida, people turn on ESPN. They turn it on because they know there's something of sports going on there. They don't turn on NBCSN, even though it has been a great product and great announcers and all that. But people are not. Average Joe is not turning that channel on.
Well, you go to the hotel bar, it's not gonna. It's gonna be ESPN.
That's true.
Exactly. So we'll see what happens, but this might be a blessing in disguise. And it might hurt. They might not get the deal they want because who's going to be bidding against them? Last time NBC, from what this guy said, ESPN, they were bidding for it. So they might have gotten the dollars up from NBC. I don't think ESPN's going to come in with some mega deal for them, if there's no major bidder against them.
And one thing to remember is when they took it away from ESPN, it was Outdoor Life Network.
Right, the first OLN, yeah.
Well,
and
then Versus.
Then Versus, it changed the name, thank God.
That deal was basically just for ad revenue. Like they were buying the network time basically to broadcast their games, thinking they could do better than a network.
Yeah, I saw on Twitter, Buchagras posted a bunch of old pictures from him and Barry Melrose and them doing NHL Tonight. I mean, I grew up on that. I loved it. We had a NHL show to watch every night on ESPN, covering all the games from the night. I mean,
that's my era too, Cabby.
Of course. I mean, hey, granted, ESPN got rid of baseball tonight for the most part, so I don't know if you see that coming. It would probably be something on like ESPN Plus. Like if ESPN picked them up, you would get that show streaming on ESPN Plus. I think they actually do one with Linda Cohn, or they were, where you could watch like a highlight, like a NHL Tonight type of show. I don't think that'll ever come back. That's something you could probably stream, and Buchagras would probably be all over that.
He would be. He's all over everything hockey and college hockey.
Yeah. No, he's good. He's a good sport because I think everyone loves him, like across sports world. So it's good that people listen to him. They probably laugh at him a little bit with the whole college hockey thing, and he does the jerseys, but it's good exposure for the game.
Well, I also think, when he's doing Sports Center late at night on a Friday night, you got a chance of seeing one of those, college hockey highlights. He'll make sure it gets on there. And, you've got that Johnny Walker goal. I bet you he was at ESPN going, okay, that's going to be number 1 tonight, guys.
Right. Don't fight me on this.
It's true.
Well, I mean, it was. And then, we were doing the podcast. I looked over and they had the post that Bob McKenzie was on NBC, and they were talking about who's going to be the number 1 pick in the draft. And all of a sudden they started showing Owen Power highlights. And I'm like, man, that guy would look good in a Blackhawk uniform.
Good chance for the Blackhawks to get a number 1 pick this year.
Exactly. The moons might align. I mean, I don't know who else is out there. Obviously, those other 2 Michigan guys are top 10 picks. I love Matty Beniers' game. I love how he's a very all around good player. And Ken Johnson's super skilled, but man, Owen Power's 6'5" and skates like it. He's almost like Quinn Hughes, but 6'5" and mean. He can't skate as well as Quinn Hughes, but man,
he's got a little Victor Hedman ceiling to him.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, he's maybe an inch smaller, but he might still be growing. From what I heard, he grew. Brisson played with him in Chicago last year and said he was 6'2" or 6'3", and now he's 6'5". But I mean, he's 17 still. That's when you're still growing. I mean, he's barely 18. He's 18 in October, November. He just turned 18 before our first broadcast, I think, on the 15th of November. And he's got what? Like, he had 4 assists last weekend. He had the game we did. He had a goal and an assist. I mean, wow. He will not be there next year.
He's one of those guys I wish I could watch live, especially those big players. Like, it just something about it on TV. It doesn't quite translate to the impact they can have on the game when you can see it live. You can see
being like
gaps.
5 rows from the ice.
Right.
You know, right down there. I've seen Victor Hedman from like the 7th row. And it's just like, how does that guy that big do what he's doing out there? And that's, I guess, every sport's getting like that now. You go to an NBA game, a guy's 7 foot and he's doing all that. So these athletes are just becoming freakishly great. But that's it's good to be Owen Power right now. That's all I'm gonna say. Man!
All right, Cappy, we're pushing
much fun.
We're pushing midnight for you here. You need to get some rest so you're pretty when you're on TV.
If you want to get rid of me, that's fine.
No, I'm just giving you a hard time.
I know, no, that's good. I'm enjoying myself. I always do with you guys. So,
it's strange though. I mean, like, everything's so up in the air for you with BTN. It's like,
I mean,
and then even changed. You know, I'm wondering, are we going to see much of Dan Kelly now that Ben Holden is kind of the new guy who got dumped by, you know, CBS Sportsnet or whatever for association. We hear Ben Holden calling games.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. I love doing stuff with Chris too, with Chris Foster, but he does he does every sport, man. His skills are ridiculous. Yes. He's doing right now he's doing basketball. He could do the volleyball. I'm sure he's getting assigned some of that. He's doing other networks too. He loves doing the hockey, obviously, with me, and he wants to do it all, but he might not be able to do it all with what it all is going on right now. So I don't know anything, but that could be something that happens where, you know, maybe, you know, Ben and Dan are doing more of the games. I don't know. Who knows? Right now I have 3 on the schedule right now, and 2 of them, I don't even know who are in the games. Just have dates. Well, to be fair, one of them is the quarterfinal for the tournament. So the other 2 dates are, you know, much earlier, and there could be more. I've talked to them. We keep talking, and there's dialogue. You know what? I got my plane ticket can change whenever it needs to, and I will head back as soon as I'm called for it. But it's wild. I think one of the games I have is an 11 a.m. Central start on a Saturday.
You must be doing the Penn State game, because that Minnesota Penn State game is an 11 a.m. game.
It might be. Is it in mid-February or so?
Yeah, I think it's towards the end of February, because they just announced the times, and my U of M source said it's so it can be on TV. So
I'm not sure. It's
Sunday. It's so Saturday. You know, Penn State's 1 p.m. Sunday it's 11 a.m. Both on BTN.
Okay, well there you go. That might be So,
but you know what?
But yeah, that's the only one that I knew. Right, that's the only one I knew. Possibly, I think Penn State. I saw that was on that, but
And the thing is, you could call that from Chicago. I hear Penn State's not easy. Penn State's not easy to get to, is it? I mean, it's a great place to go to, but it's not easy to get to, is it?
Well, it's an expensive flight.
Yeah.
Like a direct flight from O'Hare, I know, to College Park is not cheap. I may have done it a bunch of times on American or whatever, but especially if you're doing it. I mean, I guess if you book it early, it's a little cheaper, but I don't know if they're doing. I mean, so I think Ben and Fred did the games at Michigan. They did the game at Michigan State because they live there. I think it was like one of those things where they live in that area. I think Ben lives in Michigan. I'm not quite sure on that. I know Fred does, and I don't know if they're doing any other games. I don't know if any games I'm doing are at anywhere. Don't, like I said, Fred and them were on site, I believe.
Really?
I think, I don't know. I could be wrong, but they were talking that way during the broadcast. And I don't know if Ben was doing that to make it sound like they were there. At this point, I don't feel like you need to trick anyone. Everyone knows that most people aren't at the arena. We had a meeting about that at the start, and they said, you don't need to tell them, but you don't need to not tell them thing, and I think at that time it was something where nothing had started yet other than football, and football was on site. Yeah. So I think they were kind of being, that, but by now everyone knows everyone's doing the best they can. And,
oh yeah,
so it hasn't been it's been pretty good for the most part. I haven't missed many things doing the game with monitors and stuff.
No.
You might miss a few things behind the play or something, or, you might have to wait a little longer to see a replay before you want to comment on something. That's one thing that I've kind of got caught a couple times where I'm like, let's wait. Let's maybe leave some dead air here to maybe make sure this happened or this didn't happen, or, that kind of thing. But for the most part, it's not
you know
bad.
what? That's okay. I think some announcers are so afraid to have dead air. Whereas, I watch some of these.
Oh, I thought this guy tipped it. No, the other guy did. So what?
It's like,
you comment on it.
Sometimes you just got to let things breathe too. And sometimes you're just, okay, I'll talk about the radio. You listen to the Vikings on the radio here. And it's like programmed, you get the announcer, and then the color guy's got to come in right away. Just talk. It's like constant talk. I mean, you don't even hear the game. You don't hear the game going on. Pardon?
Well, radio's a little different though.
A radio's a little different, but
because you got to be a little more detailed because nobody can see what's going on.
True, but it's still, and you listen to an old baseball game. Sometimes It's like you'll just hear the roar of the crowd. You hear the hit of the bat. It's like you don't have to always be going. Obviously, a little different this year where there's no crowds, and you've seen them get messed up. With some of these crowd noises that are not the greatest at times. It's like, whew.
Yeah, no, it's funny some of the times, to be honest.
I actually don't think they're doing that in the Gopher games at home, are they? I haven't been hearing any crowd sounds, at least piped in. Not that I know. I mean, they play music and stuff like that, but I don't hear the piped in crowd music.
I wish we got more ice mic stuff. Like, especially like when
sounds
from the ice, because the players are talking a lot more.
Yeah,
you've heard a couple goalies talk about how
problem.
They can hear the tips and things, and they can hear players calling for the puck a lot easier than they used to. And that's a fun part, I think, about being around games like that, especially now when you can hear everything. I think it's been an adjustment for some of the coaches yelling at the refs and things like that and talking to players, but they're adjusting.
And that's why I like hockey on the more national networks, like an NBC Sports Network or NBC, and football as well, because I'll turn on my surround sound, turn off the center channel, and there is no announcers. You're just hearing the sounds of hockey, the football game, the basketball game. You're only hearing the sounds, and it's kind of refreshing when you're hearing just the sounds of hockey and not the announcer blaring. I kind of like that at times. This year's just a little different because it's all fake sound.
Yeah, they're trying. It's just impossible to not make it corny. It's, I get it. It's probably maybe helping the players a little bit, I guess. Maybe not the fan, but like music. And the one thing that I'm frustrated by, and I'm not, obviously, you're telling me, so you're allowed to have 150 people in the fans or whatever, or family and friends.
Depending on the state,
You're telling me that the 20 band members can't be in the arena, spread out in the little section over there. You can't have the band there with masks on or whatever. I mean, completely spread out in the corner. Come on.
Here's one interesting thing that I've always been told is that Minnesota, the band has to pay to be there. They're paying for those seats that
I
they are
don't think
taking
that's
up.
happening this year. So
not this year,
that's...
but in all past years, since they're taking up seats, the band is paying for those seats they take up. I was told that years ago by
that's everywhere thing.
Vegas was giving me a weird look, but I've asked Skeeter this, and Skeeter's told me that he runs the band for hockey.
Maybe there's a budget adjustment somewhere happening to make sure that happens. But I know some football programs count their band and cheerleaders as attendance to meet minimum attendance standards. So they can count those seats as being sold. I know that happens, but I miss the band too. I know that there's a lot of concern with the COVID spread with the instruments because you're basically just like putting.
You're spitting out,
but aren't they?
Spitting.
But you could have them. They're not being tested, or I guess band's not doing anything. I guess they're just being regular students this year.
Yeah, so.
I guess that makes sense to an extent.
I'd worry that Lou Nanny gets too close to the tuba player who's got COVID, and then Lou Nanny's got COVID.
I mean, Mariucci, Ohio State, and Wisconsin are such huge arenas. I think they'd be okay.
Should be some room, yeah.
But I don't know. It would just been nice to the players, especially. I love the band. Like best time in hockey playing because of the band.
They could put the whole marching band in there, Vigs.
They could. It's just.
Could you imagine that sound? My gosh.
The U of M is especially nervous with any kind of compliance or health and safety issues. I know I work there. It's a bear of a place for that stuff. So.
Well, obviously it's a rule everywhere because nobody's doing it. I don't know about other leagues to be, I couldn't tell you what the NCHC is doing, but I don't think anyone got their bands in arenas right now. But
for football, some schools have bands. But that's outdoors, so.
The SEC, they're just
SEC. COVID doesn't
just
exist.
Just light it on fire, man. Down here, it's funny. I'd say it exists like 30%. Like I went and got a haircut today. I'm obviously wearing a mask. They're all wearing masks. I had to wait outside.
Really?
Because there were two people waiting inside. Which was fine. It was 70 degrees out.
Cappy, I got to skate outside tonight.
Ooh,
it was 10 degrees, full moon. Full moon. You check out my Instagram. My daughter, very happy.
I love that. That's
mini might Scrooge.
After 2, you're all like you're sweaty underneath, and because you've been playing for 3 hours. If you were really playing, you had your daughter, but if you're playing hockey all day, I love those doing that stuff.
We got great ice right now this week.
So, I'm sure.
So there
you are outside.
Take that. I'll probably
there it is right there. He's
playing at the golf course around 3:00 tomorrow. So
jeez.
That's
tweet,
what's
tweet
the other
that.
thing that's what's the other thing that's nice down here is it doesn't get dark till after 6. Chicago, you guys get the same almost. Chicago's the worst because we're right on the line of where the central time zone starts.
So it's super early.
At the early, it's like 4:20, I think, at times, or 4:15.
Yeah.
And now it's maybe 4. Now the days are getting longer. It's 4:30, 4:40. But here it's after 6:00. So, getting close to the equator, you get a little more.
Closer to the equator, you just don't have the big variations.
Right.
In midsummer, the sun will set like at 8 there.
Oh.
Or 8 or 8:30. Right. Whereas here it sets at 9:05.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're very close in the summer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but I the whole time change things is not a big fan of it. Although I do love summer night until 9:00. That is beautiful. There you go. Little into my world. But yeah.
Crazy world.
What's Minnesota up by now? I was gonna look at the stand. They're at they have 8 points.
No, it's not 8 points. It's
it's 6.
I just had it up here.
Well, Michigan picked up 12 in the last 2 weeks, and Minnesota didn't get any.
Yeah, it's 4. 27 points for Minnesota.
See, that's the thing is
23 for Michigan, 22 for Wisconsin. But
Michigan's got 2 games in hand?
Yeah, Michigan has 2 games. They have 14 games. Minnesota and Wisconsin both have 12.
There you go.
So there's your kind of difference right there.
And that's, I think I want to say the schedule, that's the one trick for Michigan is they have a game. They have the last game of the year, I think. They have like a Tuesday game after
Michigan
that
State.
last weekend.
Yeah, they break their Michigan State up.
Tuesday. Yeah, they play that Tuesday, and then they probably have to go to Penn State, and play Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or whatever. So
yeah, so like if Minnesota sweeps this weekend, they'll be up 10 points over Michigan.
Right, but Michigan would control their own destiny. They'd have 12 points out there. Realistically.
Well, no.
Did you say they were up 4?
Minnesota's up 4 right now with 2 games in hand.
I think you said Michigan had 2 games.
No. Michigan's played 2 more games. So Michigan's played 14. Minnesota's played 12, and they're up by
Wisconsin's played 12.
Yeah. Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
No. Okay, I had that. You had that.
So Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan State have all played 14 games. Notre Dame, Wisconsin, and Minnesota have all played 12 in the league.
Okay.
Yeah,
right. Minnesota played the least amount of games in the first half.
Yep.
Yeah. Just those 8.
And they hadn't played Arizona State yet. They played Arizona. They're done with Arizona. It's funny. They were one of the last to play Arizona State, and then they were the first one to be done with them.
Mm-hmm.
I think, or maybe Notre Dame might be done with them too. I think.
Even though Arizona State was tired, I'm still kind of shocked by those results. I mean, 10-0.
Well, they were checked out.
They must have been.
They were ready to go home.
They're
January, cold in Minnesota, and they're playing a good team that was hungry.
How pissed are these guys? How pissed is Arizona State? Entire season in playing in the North when they get to go home for vacation, a little bit, but it's like
no, they're hockey players. They want to be
and
hockey.
I don't think they're pissed because if not, they would be sitting in Arizona State all year doing nothing. Practicing. I get it. At the end of this is a perfect storm for this to happen, right? Like we talked about on the regular show is Minnesota was hungry from coming off losses, and Arizona State is missing guys. And at the end of like a 10-game road trip or whatever it was that started at Mariucci and ended, 3 weeks later in Mariucci.
But I think of a guy like Sean Doogie. He's like, hey, I'm a grad assistant. I'm going to go down, get 1 year in.
Oh, I think he's going back for sure. We talked to him. It sounded like, oh no, I definitely like the fact that I have an opportunity to come back. Now this was in November, when we did their games, but we had him on, and he's like, oh no, I like to have the option, and I think Arizona State might use that for a few guys, to kind of keep their program moving. But did you see the picture they had of? They have literally ground broken on that arena.
Yep,
that's a game changer.
Road trip.
Road trip. Well, what do you guys think of what's going to happen? I think the conferences are going to get realigned. I think Miami and Western want out of that league.
Mm-hmm.
I think Minnesota. I don't know if Minnesota State would do it. I think they should go to the NCHC, and then I think you put in Arizona State in the NCHC. But that's money. That's a money thing, obviously. With travel, but everyone's flying out to CC in Denver already, so. It's not much of a difference flying to Arizona than those places. But that's how I would do it. And then you got BG and Miami going to the CCHA,
which makes sense.
Or not BG, Miami and Western.
I think it makes sense for them to go there, back to the CCHA, and Minnesota State going to it makes sense.
Maybe I know what I'm talking about. I don't know. We'll see. But I think now Arizona State fit with having that under construction, knowing it's legit going to happen. Maybe the Big Ten looks different. I've heard that it's not because of academics. That was what I've heard. And I don't know what's going to happen with Illinois. Illinois was ready to announce any minute, and then this freaking pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
So who knows how far back that's been set. Who knows? The school's lost so much money.
I literally think the Big Ten's just going to stand pat and just wait because it's not great.
They're going to wait for Illinois. I don't think they're going to.
I think they will. I don't think they'll go to Arizona State, but like you said, Arizona State will look like a nice place for the NCHC if they do some shuffling.
Yeah, and it kind of adds up, right?
Yeah.
In terms of regionality too, so what would that leave the CCHA with? How many teams? If you got Ferris, Lake State, Michigan Tech, Bowling Green,
Bemidji,
St. Thomas.
St. Thomas. They're going to be good.
So they have 8 or 10 team league eventually or so.
Mm-hmm.
There. So you have 8 there, and 7.
But like Eric Brever's saying in the chat, if Western and Miami leave to go to CCHA, Mankato and Bemidji will go to the NCHC.
Well, it'll be Minnesota State and Arizona State. Those would be the 2 to fill.
Oh yeah, I guess. Oh.
You would think Arizona State would be more attractive now that they're going to have that arena. You'd probably get some Pac-10 TV involved a little bit here and there. Fox Arizona is picking. I think Fox Arizona picks up every game that's on, like the Minnesota games and the Fox Wisconsin. I think because I've seen they tweet it out and it's on Fox Arizona, the games. So clearly, it's something they want to put on there. They're invested in it a little bit. So I don't know, but I'd go there if I was 15. Right, my friend, my good friend, has got 15. He's turning 16 in July, and he's a pretty good player. He's in, he grew up in Columbus. He's got a shot in hockey to make it in college. I told him, like, hey, you're perfect age right now. You should have one goal, get to play hockey at Arizona State. He's like, man, I'll just take anywhere. I'm like, I like that attitude, but.
Well, honestly, the Big Ten just kind of screws up a lot of things. It just does because it's so spread out. Because we had Pat Micheletti on, and I was kind of with him. If we're ever to realign the way it should, you should put all 6 Minnesota schools in the league because now you got St. Thomas. Add North Dakota, add Wisconsin. That's a solid conference right there.
Yeah, but that
and they're all drivable. The furthest drive would be Wisconsin.
Right, but that would never happen. The Big Ten would not.
I know, but I'm just saying.
With that. In just a world of aligning.
In a world of college hockey, that would be a really fun conference, and
man,
similar to the old WCHA.
Everything.
Yeah.
Oh, the rivalry.
Because now Minnesota's going to have a rivalry a couple miles away when St. Thomas, and I'd be interesting to see if Minnesota plays St. Thomas in their first game.
They should.
They should.
They should.
I'd love to see it if Gensel was the coach of St. Thomas, come back to Mariucci.
Then it might not happen, Yeah.
Have they done that yet? Are they next year or is it 2 years away?
It's next year.
They're getting players committing.
But they're independent. They're independent
next
year.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
They're right into the CCHA?
CCHA starts next year. This is the last year of the WCHA the way it is at right now.
Well, right, but that St. Thomas is going in to the CCHA?
Well, I know they're going D1, so right away.
Well, right, but I've never seen a team go right to a conference. Before. I guess maybe full time. I mean, Penn State wasn't full time D1, and then when they were, I think it was right into it because they still would play some club games those first couple years.
Mm-hmm.
They played club teams and then Wisconsin and all that, but. Yeah, no,
I believe St. Thomas is their first year because they're bringing the league together at once. And
what's crazy is look, you can't get U of I, Illinois get a program and all these other places, but Long Island University comes out of nowhere and is Division I in 10 seconds.
Amazing.
And granted, their schedule is, who knows where they're going to end up if they're going to get into a conference. Who knows? But it's just crazy how that happened. In 2 months, it seemed like they're like, we're going to be a Division I. Everyone's like, okay, sure. Maybe in 2 or 3 years. Next thing you know, they're playing Quinnipiac. And it's like, and it's like, okay, great. I mean, great. More the merrier, because what's going to happen with Alaska? Either of those.
Mm-hmm.
I mean.
Well, the Kraken are giving $100,000 to Anchorage.
Okay.
I just saw that on Twitter before we came on. Seattle Kraken are giving Alaska Anchorage $100,000 for next season.
That is a 20th of their budget.
I know.
20th. Oh, right. Oh, Alaska's. Yeah, I was going to say it's a 20th of one game. The Seattle. I've read somewhere or heard when they opened their portal or whatever, or they hadn't even opened up yet for people to try to get season tickets, and they had 20,000 people that wanted to buy season tickets before, like they got into where they could hold the spot or something.
Wow.
Like I didn't know Seattle, because Seattle had struggled with hockey before, right?
It's a big city though.
Back in the day. No, I know.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
I hope they change the rules a little bit. I hope they don't get the Vegas.
I believe they have, haven't they?
It's not quite as favorable.
I mean, wow. I mean, look at Vegas now. They're a juggernaut.
Hey, when you pay $500 million, you get some perks.
That's why, though, they paid for those perks.
Yeah.
The
Wild and Columbus bought in for what? 80 million, 70 million? And they basically were just like, here's a franchise.
Okay.
Good luck.
Build it up. Scraps.
And Vegas is like, okay, 500 million. Let's get a better team right from the start.
Well, and they made some deals with teams. They used those. Hey, you're gonna take this guy in the draft, but only if you do that. I mean, William Karlsson. Like, I give my friend all crap all the time. Like, you guys gave up William Karlsson for nothing, and he scored 40 the next year.
Alex Tuck, that
power
forward that the Wild don't need.
Yeah, they did well getting some guys that they didn't know for sure yet. You didn't know for sure Alex Tuck was going to be, Karlsson, you didn't know he was going to score 40 that year, but they won those.
They did.
And then they signed them quick.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. They signed these guys quick and got them for, medium contracts. Like, look at.
He went quiet.
I did.
Yeah, for a second there.
My back. Got me
Yeah,
all excited. But yeah, so you got to sign Joel Thornton and Spezza for $80, because they can't afford anybody else. And they're still good now, but
where does the Frozen Four happen, guys?
Oh no, there's not going to be Frozen Four. I think the whole tournament's going to happen in one spot. I think Minneapolis.
That would be nice.
Is there somewhere else that maybe is a little more lenient?
Notre Dame.
Yeah, I mean,
like I've heard Notre Dame would be.
If there's not fans, you can go anywhere. I mean,
there's not going to be fans April 1st. There's no way.
No, not yet.
I think this whole season.
And then you just need a good place for television. You needed some place that's good for television.
Right. I'm like I think they're going to have everyone in one. I think it's going to be a bubble for the 16 teams if they do 16 teams. I assume they're going to do it. I think it's going to be all done in one place in like 10 days, like the first weekend. And then I don't think the schedule is going to be exactly the same.
I mean, obviously we've got the X, obviously. If you want to stay at standard ranks right there in Minneapolis, you've got, you could go anywhere, couldn't you, Viggs? I mean, you've got Ritter, but if it's just for television, you don't need all the bells and whistles, do you?
Yeah. I mean, I think if they were to do it locally here in the Minnesota market, Ritter and Mariucci would be ranks to consider. I mean, if they're already going to
use Mariucci because the Olympic size, though.
Yeah. I don't know.
Especially if Minnesota's there. I mean, they don't want Minnesota playing on their home ice if it's a different size. I mean, because that's a big difference then.
Well, then maybe they play all the games at Ritter. I mean, Ritter's a good rink. Good for TV.
It is.
Yeah, I don't know where else you would because I think you need to have somewhere that has multiple rinks, though, if you're going to try to do a one place.
Because you'd have plenty of rinks to practice at in Minnesota at that time of year.
Well, I'm just thinking, because what is it? Normally there's 4 games, and there's 6 games, and then there's 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
Or is that how it is? Yeah. The Friday was always 4 games. And then the
Saturday there's 6.
6, and then the 2 on the last day.
Yep.
It's the greatest weekend of the year.
Well, right. So Saturday
it is my favorite weekend of the year. You
couldn't do it in one. You'd need 2 arenas at least. Because then you got to combat overtimes. What if you do, even if you have 3 games and 3 arenas, what if a game goes to double, triple overtime? Noon, 3:30 and 7:30, but I think you need at least two arenas that you could do them in if you're going to do it in one spot. But
well, I mean, you've got the X. You even have the Trio rink that's right down there by the X Vigs.
Yeah, I just think it would be tricky to work with the NHL at that time of year to try to do it at Tria.
Because their regular season is going till May.
Right.
So they're going to be.
So that's the one reason why it's like, I don't know if Tria and the X would be viable spots.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of other.
Mariucci Ritter is a great place. I mean, it would be perfect because then you have all the TV and everything can come into one location.
I'm trying to think of other areas or locations, cities that maybe, because I don't know if an NHL arena is going to be feasible based on.
Right. I mean, the NHL is still going on, so.
Right, the NHL normally schedules if they know the Excel is going to be the Frozen Four location. The NHL knows that, and they schedule their season. They make sure the Wild are not playing there most of the time. Yep. They've done that. Isn't that weird? That one year didn't they play there? Isn't that during the Big Ten tournament? Maybe.
The Big Ten they had to change the rink over, and it was weird for the afternoon game. I remember that.
You could do Kohl Center.
But like I said, you need to have minimum two game rinks, minimum two.
Yeah, well, so
if you're going to do a
Kohl Center works for that because Kohl Center's got Kohl Center, and it's got LeBon right next door.
LeBon, yeah, and it's all in one facility.
You do all the games at the same time at Super Rink up in Blaine.
Oh, so the Super Rink in Blaine has eight.
How's
eight
TV
rinks.
Up there?
Probably not very good, though. There is good streaming there. The NHL does their showcase there, and
Vigs, we have played on every single rink.
I've played on every rink. I could get some advanced.
When I think about it now, is the place that might be capable of doing is Boston. They have they have BU, they have BC, they have North. They all have the arenas in a relatively small area. And you could use the TD Garden too, possibly if it's available. But it's a big city that's got college rinks that could be used, and obviously BC and BU, if they're in it, they could play in other rinks. They could finagle that or whatever. But
how many games has BU played?
6.
They look they're doing really well too.
I know,
which is kind of they're like.
I'm just saying that Boston might not be the best
Well,
environment.
they're like Ohio State in football. Like, okay, they may only play 10 games, but they're probably better than everybody else, or not everybody else. But
we've seen enough. They're in.
They're probably better than
Bowling Green.
Who is the WCHA team? Bowling Green. I mean, yes, their record is really good, though. I think they're a lock. But
they just got swept by Bemidji this weekend.
Bemidji was one of them.
Oh, Bemidji. Okay.
I don't know who the third one is.
Bemidji would have to go on a big run to get in, I think.
They would.
Because they're not going to get they're not going to get that love from, I don't know, who knows. If the committee's filled with Bob Daniels, they might, that's his league. So, who was you don't know the fourth team was? Was it
it's Michigan Tech? Maybe? Michigan Tech.
What? Okay.
They swept Northern Michigan. They won 7 in a row.
Western Michigan's not very good this year if you look at their record.
Hey, Tech is celebrating their 100th year too.
Hey, good for them, but WCHA gets 4 teams. No way. But I mean, look, you're not going to get any. You get Clarkson.
Yeah, ECAC gets 1. Yeah.
Well, Quinnipiac. Are they getting Hockey East now?
Maybe. No, they're still in ECAC, right?
They're still there. Yeah. So
basically, we don't have a freaking clue what's going to happen.
No, I think the Big Ten looks like they'll have 3 and then possibly 4 if someone else wins the tournament besides Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Michigan. I mean, Wisconsin's like in that 12 range. As long as they don't completely pitter off, I think they'll get in because of the reputation, as opposed to where I have Bemidji would or Michigan Tech is what I think.
And honestly, I could see the first round in the NCAAs being on home rinks.
But travel all up for one game. I think you'd have to. I don't. But then you got to travel to. They don't want to travel to have teams traveling that much. You would think.
I know, but it's just. I mean, it's tough to find one spot that could handle all of that.
Well, what I would say is you'd maybe have all the 4 top seeds host the region. They're that four little bubbles maybe. Gophers would host.
I think we might still have regionals.
I think we'll have 2 super regionals. That's what I think we'll see.
An East and a West.
East and a West.
You have Minnesota and Boston or whatever.
And you might even see your kind of traditional East-West style bracket.
Right. All teams east of Penn State or west of every east of Penn State one way. Penn State and the rest
that Midwest regional in Pennsylvania makes so much sense.
Hey, they got a nice brand new arena there.
Come on.
Everybody who went there liked it. So.
And the funny thing is, I love the new choice. Wasn't one going to be at Loveland this year? Loveland, Colorado, just out of Denver.
Yeah.
Yep.
That sounded very appealing. In fact, they're going to be. I know they've got two of them set up.
I love their choices for the Frozen Four too. The last 4 were terrible choices because it was the same stuff. Crap. Shit.
Well, so you're saying, hey, let's get Seattle in there now.
Well, that's fine. But Vegas, Tampa, Nashville, sign up for all those. You don't need to go to – you got to go to places where people will go. Look at Buffalo. It was the worst attendance in
awful
20 years. You go to Tampa. I was there for the first one. It was not just that everyone went, but it was so well ran.
Like, oh my gosh, they did it better than Minnesota. I got to the airport and there was banners everywhere.
Minnesota was. I've been to 4 or 5. Minnesota was the worst in terms of like. It's like there in Boston, like they've done it, and they're like, it's just another thing. Tampa treated like it was the Super Bowl. They treated it. And they brought him right back.
I couldn't believe it. I get off the plane and there's banners for Frozen 4 as I'm walking down the
cheerleaders for the teams. And they had police escorts to their hotels and stuff. I just think Vegas will be knock it out of the park. People North Dakota fans will be at that one. It'll be ridiculous. But I mean, everybody will go because it's a vacation. Like I say, go if my team's there, great. But I'm going to enjoy it. I got other things to do when the games are going on. What are you going to do in Buffalo? No offense. In Buffalo in that time of year. It's April.
People always said we shouldn't do that very much because look what happened at Anaheim and all that stuff back in a while ago. And I'm like, well, no one wants to go to Los Angeles. That's just too much. But would people go to San Jose?
I don't think that'll happen. But I love the Vegas, Tampa, Nashville. Nashville will be friggin' fabulous.
Yeah, that'd be a big party.
Crush Nashville. But it also grows the game a little bit. You'll get some fans from Nashville to go see college hockey, and what does that hurt? And then, like I said, the best thing when I see it at Frozen Four is you see every team's jersey. People come from everywhere.
Yep.
To go to it. And more will come if you're going to fun places. They'll decide to spend that money. Some people I've read like they didn't want to spend the money to go to Buffalo. And Buffalo is a cool little city for maybe the summer. And if you're, a Buffalo person, they're very dedicated to that place. But it's not a destination you're going to spend to go to Frozen Four. And you saw it in the numbers. So.
Yeah, I don't mind Tampa, but just because I have relatives that live there and I can just stay at their place.
Sure. So it's cheap. And I think Detroit would have been, and I think they'll get it again. I don't know how they're going to do this now. I guess it's not officially canceled, but they got a brand new arena there. That's why they got it, I think. I haven't been there yet. I'd love to go see it. I'm sure it's great, but.
Well, you either got to have a destination where people want to go, or you got to have a fan base that will buy it up and go anyway.
Right.
It's got to be one or the other. You can't have an in-between thing like Buffalo.
Right. I mean, also because you don't think Michigan people this year would be buying that up? I mean, Detroit, look at this team we got.
Mm-hmm.
They buy it up, and then if they don't, they'd probably, they'd still have to, obviously they're bought up, but sell them for half price, I guess, if they don't make it. But yeah. I mean, they did Denver once. That was okay, I guess. They do Denver.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the Pepsi
Maybe
Center.
8 or 10 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just think the more fun cities, the better. The new fun hockey. Dallas, maybe. Dallas wouldn't be so bad. Tampa and Vegas are in the next. They in the next 4, and I think Tampa and Vegas were in it, right?
I can't remember.
I thought I saw that. I think they named the next 4, which is they're only halfway through the other 4 they named, because I think you still got a.
Vegas getting on the Google right now.
Yeah.
I didn't know Vegas.
I'm pretty sure. I thought Vegas and Tampa were in it.
I know
but
Tampa.
I could be a little wrong.
Because we got Pittsburgh, Boston, Tampa, St. Paul, St. Louis, and it is Vegas. Vegas in 2026.
Boom.
So
Vegas and Tampa are in there. But that's what I'm saying. Boston doesn't need it. Boston can go away. St. Louis, Pittsburgh, they just had it. It's funny.
The thing is, you're going to get Minnesota and Boston. It's just going to happen because of the number of schools there. It's a good central location for schools. Obviously, they don't put it on as great of a show, but you have it at the X. You've got Sioux fans. You've got Badger.
All right. I mean, no, you're going to get – it's going to be full, and that's fine, and it was. But I like these other cities.
St. Louis again, yawn. According to Eric Brever in the chat, St. Louis again, yawn, so –
St. Louis and Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's a cool little city, but they just had it 5 years ago, maybe.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago.
I'd rather have it in Philly, if you're gonna go that route. But yeah, I don't know. Give me those fun cities. Dallas. It doesn't have to be super warm, but outside the box, people are gonna come to those cities. St. Louis, I'd be a little worried if they're gonna sell that one out. Honestly, be a little worried.
If they can get, here's the thing: if they can get
depends on that one might depend on who's there.
Yeah, if you get North Dakota or Minnesota, it really helps because that's.
But if you're going to get, and I'm not knocking any school or team, but if you're going to get if you're going to get 3 teams from out east, and then knock my school, Ohio State. We're not going to travel thousands of fans there. But and then that's going to be a 12,000 season. People will be there. 12,000 in St. Louis. They're going to fill 18,000 for.
Yeah, if you get like Denver, Ohio State, Providence, and Cornell, good luck.
No, right. Great hockey programs, but not big fan and small schools. So obviously not. Yeah, you're gonna do okay if you get Notre Dame, Michigan, North Dakota.
That'll sell out. That'll sell out anywhere.
10-second, right? And you can't play it like that. I don't know. I'm sure there's. I remember I was sitting with Mel Pearson. It was funny. He was still at Tech. We were at the Frozen Four in Chicago. His brother knew a guy I was with. Somehow we were talking, and then we went and sat 4 rows behind the bench, the Notre Dame bench. Denver was wiping them out. Denver was really good that day. They ended up losing to Duluth. Notre Dame was a little overwhelmed there. It was their last year before they came to the Big Ten. And I'm sitting there with Mel, and he was on the committee deciding the Frozen Fours. He kind of told me what they look at. I'm like, hey, man, that should be in Tampa every 4 years. Or as often as you're allowed to go to some place. Why not? Indianapolis is the Final Four for basketball every 4 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's a no-brainer when you see how well it's done. But he was telling me stuff that I can't remember what goes into it, decisions and crap, and stuff that it's easy for us to say this is no-brainer stuff, but it's bureaucratic crap that I have no interest in.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
exactly. Anyways. But Tampa does a great job. So
that's why they got their 3rd one. I mean, go where they treat it like gold. They're going to pay the money, whatever it costs, all that stuff.
Has anyone been to DC? How was the DC Frozen Four?
No, I haven't. I heard it pretty good, right?
I don't know, because I would actually I've been wanting to get back to DC. And I think
that'd be an
DC's
interesting one. That's
because I know they did it. They did it not too long ago, but
yeah, come back to Chicago again too. They did it.
are they ever going to do Madison Square Garden?
Oh man, I'd love that. That would do well. That would crush. That place is awesome. I was so happy when they did that Big Ten hockey thing. That was, I mean, I feel very, very fortunate that the 2 games that I did, one from up above and with Dan, and then I got to be between the benches for one at Madison Square Garden. Man, that's pretty cool. So Madison Square Garden is an unbelievable place. I don't know.
But obviously, it's
I've
like
never been.
It's like the busiest arena in the world, so it's that's tough to get in there.
Sure, you got to plan it out, but they do it.
But they do like the Big East basketball
make it
tournament
happen.
and stuff like that. Like I'm sure they would fit it in.
Yeah, but by then usually the NBA is pretty much finishing, I think, or it's second weekend of April, so most basketball's done, or the college is done. Hockey's ending. I feel like it could happen. I don't know why. Probably one of those bureaucratic things that I didn't hear about, that I didn't pay attention to.
According to the chat, they said DC didn't do a great job hosting. I mean, that was a fun trip, because
did they get a lot of fans? Did they fill?
Well, the thing is, Steve's saying, 3 hours before puck drop on Thursday, a bar 3 blocks from the arena, the guy couldn't figure out why all these people were there with hockey jerseys. So they didn't even know about it.
Oh man. That's one city I don't know really well, aside from the political area. I don't know the DC like downtown and arena district and all that kind of stuff, other than seeing Ovi in the
I think DC is a great town to visit, because it's
sure.
you jump on the metro, you can get to any place. You don't need to drive anywhere. It's that's why it's so great. But
that Frozen Four trip is not just about the hockey. It's about
definitely.
It's a vacation. That's what a lot of people enjoy it for. And I just, the better the city, the better buzz you get. Because, for years it was like, okay, the regionals are dog shit. Nobody's there. We're at these arenas out east that get no fans, and they just keep rotating those 3-4 arenas. It's the same ones every freaking year. And then you go to the Frozen Four, and it's a big ESPN, and it's sold out, and it's great. It just changes in a boom.
And the thing is, that's what we had here for you'd have the WCHA Final Five.
Sure.
Just crazy. Next week, you could have a regional at the same arena, completely different.
Yeah.
Completely different. Because, it got to be where those WCHA fans were season ticket holders. They're coming each year if their team is there or not. I mean,
right.
The championship game was always
those tickets, right? You've got those tickets, part of your deal.
Yeah. So, but then you'd have a regional the next, because I'll never forget. You've got that. You got the Blake Wheeler goal when he dives and wins it in overtime. At the WCHA Final Five, they play North Dakota at the same time, the same week, 2 overtime at Pepsi Center in Denver for a regional, and the place was mostly empty.
Yeah.
Great game, but it's just not the same without that. I mean, there was 19,000 at the X who saw that happen. And then these both great teams come back the next week, and they're playing in front of nobody.
Tom McGinnis was chair of the D1 men's hockey committee for a term. It was like 4 or 5 years. And he said the biggest regret he has is that he couldn't get NCAA tourney games back on campus. He just can never get traction on it because it's the worst atmosphere weekend of the year for college hockey.
Yeah. I remember why it got moved was because of Michigan. 2 years in a row, they hosted at Ann Arbor at Yost Ice Arena. They were the number 4 seed in both of those. And either one, they both beat the number 1 seed because the place was packed with Michigan fans. And they beat CC one year and I think Denver the other year. And they were both the number 1 seeds and made obviously a huge thing about it. And I think that was the end of it. Grand Rapids started getting some regionals and get 1,000 people there, but I think they were just, you know, like you're gonna have, you know, Mariucci host them. How would that, you know, people would have an uproar about that.
Yeah, but that wasn't always great either, especially Minnesota wasn't there. So,
well, obviously, if they're not there.
But I think having a high seed first round hosted game, you're in the top 8 of the pairwise, you get a home game.
Yeah.
But then
you earned it. Then you earned it.
You're saying if you're anywhere in the top 8, those 4 teams,
those 8 teams host their first round game.
Right, but then where's the next game?
Well, you have super regionals or something the next week, but that first round.
So just one game weekend.
Well, I think best of 3, but
okay, but I mean, in the NCAA tournament.
Yes.
Okay.
Because that's how it used to be. After
that, one gamers.
Yeah, you have 2 sites for one gamers.
Right.
To get to a Frozen Four.
To the 4.
Yeah.
You'd have to add in a weekend to the game, a weekend to it, or you would just cancel. There would be a week and a half between the.
Because you already have that
right, the
Final
10
Four basketball. Yeah, you already have that kind of built in.
See, that's what kills hockey too, is you're up against. And I saw, you know, being in the studio, right? They bumped us to the me and Pizzo were watching hockey in the makeup room. Because we were okay, but now we were doing intermissions for the women's Frozen Four. So it was a little different, but it was the same weekend. It was the same time we were doing that on it was a Friday, Sunday, and then the Saturday, the hockey, the men's was the other 2 days of the weekend or whatever. And I swear, you were tweeting with Pizzo about this, because this was when Minnesota, the perfect storm hit. It was that Saturday.
Yep.
And so we were in the makeup room watching Ohio State, Notre Dame, because they all were in the green room was basketball. This is the first year they did that. That year, when that was all going down, me and Pizzo were in the makeup room. And we had a nice big TV all to ourselves. We had chairs, but the makeup lady was right there with the mirror and everything. And we're sitting there. I'm like, okay, it's fine. And the funny thing is those guys weren't even going on TV for they couldn't go on until all the games were done. So till whatever the last bucket went in, because of the TV contracts or whatever. Right. So they sat in there till 1 or 2, whatever, in the morning. And that year we got bumped to the hairdresser or that room. But that was the year when the one out of 150,000.
Oh, 1 out of 64.
1 out of 64 scenarios.
Yeah.
1 out of 64 scenarios.
Yeah. And it was very unlikely of the scenarios.
Right. And then think about it. That would have been an all Big Ten Frozen Four. Because
Duluth got in because of Minnesota.
Right. So we went there. Me and I was with a girl. Pizzo couldn't go, so I was at the Frozen Four. We were doing covering it because 3 teams were at the Big Ten. Big Ten were there. I saw you there. We talked.
I saw you there.
Yeah, we saw you there. So, but after they won, we had our segment, and the last thing I said was, how ironic is it that Notre Dame, by beating Ohio State to win the Big Ten championship, allowed the team into the tournament that beat them tonight? If they had lost the Big Ten tournament to Ohio State, Minnesota is in the tournament in that spot. Duluth is out, and Duluth isn't there.
Completely all different.
Duluth wasn't there to beat them. Well, it would have been, I think that it looked like slotted North Dakota or the Gophers would have just taken Duluth's spot in at least the brackets. I don't think they would have changed.
The Sioux Falls Regional, yeah.
Yeah, I think they would have just popped right in there. So I think it would have been the same. But that was the thing I said, the irony of, by them winning the Big Ten, that helped this team get in and end up beating them to end this season. So, but that was the whole story about us in the cleaning room.
All I care about is that regional weekend that all the games are on TV, because that weekend, I just love to it's solid hockey all weekend.
Yeah, it's Saturday.
Do or die, and it's my favorite weekend of the year. The Frozen Four is not my favorite weekend of the year. It's regional weekend where it's 3 days. Is it it's 4, 6, and 2. It's like,
Yeah,
that Saturday is amazing.
I think I've been fighting to get on in some way or another for that weekend, whether it would be in the studio with Starman when he was doing it with whoever in Charlotte, or getting a regional for like the last 5 or 6 years. But ESPN just doesn't really care. They just go with what they have, unless someone falls out. They kind of just, these guys were here, so we'll just call them and, give it to them, which is fine. I get it. It's their only games they do all year. So
that's why I want 8 sites for that first round.
I'm all for it. That means they got to use me. I can't be that far down.
They got to expand the roster.
That far down on the wrong. Well, I wonder if they would even cover 8. They'd probably, I don't know.
I mean, for like all the D3 sports
ESPN
and stuff,
Ocho.
like all the D3 sports and the women's hockey, like all those events are done with campus sites for the first round. And
no,
those things.
The women's
I'm good with it.
The women's tournament is.
Yeah.
I'm good with it. I just know that you're not going to get that much TV coverage because of all the basketball that's going on. Hockey's got such an uphill climb. I just love if there was a way to like move the season a month later, because you just people are just obsessed with the bracketology crap and basketball. I think it's fun too, but we just get buried.
I haven't played one in years. I haven't watched a game in years.
Well, the coverage is just nonstop for it.
I'm not worried about you. Worried about, like I said, the fringe people that might watch if it wasn't being, covered by basketball.
Well, the thing is,
by basketball.
If you want, you can move it for television. I mean, there's days off for the NCAA basketball tournament. You could schedule around it.
Sure. Well, I'm talking about like regularly moving the 2 weeks maybe back, starting the season a little later and ending it a little later. Because what's going on in April? Nothing.
Yeah, I mean,
in terms of like college sports, all the other sports are like kind of beginning. Like the spring sports are just in their like early, middle regular seasons. I'm just trying to think out of the box in terms of, getting more, like you said, getting more eyes on the game, the games. And maybe if ESPN does take more investment into hockey, that's why do they care about college hockey when they're not even covering the NHL?
It's a weird relationship, and the NCAA hockey is very protective of that relationship for whatever reason.
Yeah, and I mean maybe that changes though if the NHL goes back to ESPN. You see how MMA is now. ESPN had nothing to do with them, but now they're big partners.
Yeah.
Well, one thing to remember is that for many years, the NCAA only made money off of the NCAA basketball tournament and the hockey tournament. Every other tournament was a money loss for them.
Right.
Even hockey's the women's basketball tournament. So hockey's always been profitable for them.
Right.
I don't know if that's still the case, but that's what I heard in like the early 2000s and even recently is that they make money off that, because obviously they don't make money off of football because football is the bowl systems, college football.
Right.
That has nothing to do with the NCAA. So the NCAA basketball tournament is their big thing, and then they've got hockey, which makes some money, but then the rest is all it costs them.
Well, that's the Frozen Four is the week after. It's got its own. Mm-hmm. It's got its own stage, but before that, it is just buried. Like you go to a bar. I was watching Notre Dame two years ago, and I'm fighting for one TV because everything else is on the basketball. And I'm just like, hey man, I'm sitting at this bar. I had 2 friends with me, and I'm like, I need this one TV. And they did because I were buying drinks, and there was plenty of TVs for the basketball, but we had this one TV, no volume. And Notre Dame was playing. I couldn't even tell you to try it, and that's just the way it is. You guys get a whole different, you guys live in a great hockey, bubble there. It's great. It's just not that way anywhere else, sadly, or many other places.
It's hard to complain here. It's hard to complain because you can go to a sports bar. Most likely they'll be able to get it for you. So.
Yeah, well, you can get it anywhere. It's just, is it going to be on? Or
that's true.
You got to work your way to get it. You got to battle for it. Hey, man, can I have this one little square in the back here? We promise we won't bother your other game.
We'll tip well.
So.
We'll tip well. Give us the screen, please. I remember going to Vegas once. I'd be like, I will bet however much I need to bet on this hockey game for you to put it on one of your TVs.
There you go. I mean, hey, that's just the world that, I think gambling's obviously made it, that's the thing. If you could gamble on college hockey, I'm sure more people would watch it. People gamble on it, they'll watch badminton.
Give it time. Once they start betting in some of these towns,
you can. I know you can bet on the Frozen Four is for sure on a lot of the online sites. My friends tell me. I tried it once. I did it for like a couple months, and I was like, But yeah, you can Frozen Four. You can for sure do it. Click a few buttons on your phone, but not too many other because they don't know. Oh, they're the home team. They're favored.
All right, guys, I got to end
North
here.
Dakota.
I got to end here. I got to get this podcast posted.
Hey, what? It's almost what is it?
It's almost 1 a.m. for you.
Bedtime.
Yep.
And there's still 18 people watching live.
That's awesome. I love it. Thanks for watching.
Passion.
They're great fans. They like the show.
Talking too much.
All right, guys. Thanks, Cappy. Thanks, Figs.
No problem, guys.
Catch you next time.
We'll talk in March.
We will.
Yeah, we'll do our
playoff
preview.
time
Playoff time preview.
Time.
All right, later, guys.